Chapter 924. The atmosphere in the simple room became especially tense with the sound of the keyboard. It was like a race against time. Everyone knew that the most important thing to do in order to infiltrate the other party's computer was to finish what they wanted to do before the other party noticed. Which meant that she had to be fast. Not only did she have to be fast, but she also had to avoid the trap set up by the firewall. Director Huang watched as the youngster's fingers changed positions continuously. The screen seemed to have transformed into a regional network. The regional network was densely packed with defensive red lines, forming one checkpoint after another. All Bojiu had to do was to pass through the defenses without being discovered. The youngster's silver hair fell, her eyes dark. She didn't just have to type in the code, she also had to dodge. In reality, this was an opportunity for her. A chance to lock down the other party's base. But that would expose her intrusion. Hence, Bojiu didn't check the region, instead, she flew towards the hard drive. Found it, the youngster replied calmly. The tattooed man glanced up abruptly, his lips turning pale. That's impossible. Nothing is impossible. Bojiu typed in a few codes to destroy the hard drive before pressing the spacebar. Director Huang watched as the other party's hard drive appeared on the screen. This was remote control, wasn't it? 1 minute. Bojiu glanced at the time displayed at the side. The software required time to destroy, and once discovered, the firewall would be reactivated and it would take a lot of effort to attack. This meant that this minute was crucial. The tattooed man clenched his fists, breaking into a smile. You will definitely be discovered. Do you think it will be that easy? It seemed as though he was trying to prove his words. Suddenly, the laptop in Bojiu's hand started beeping. The alarm caused everyone's heart to skip a beat. This is... Director Huang's expression changed. The tattooed man laughed heartily. Once the software is destroyed, the host computer will react and hunt down the intruder. I believe that since you know computers, you should be able to understand what I'm saying. Anyone could understand his words, even those who didn't know how to use computers. Director Huang placed his hand on the edge of the table, his brows furrowed as though he was trying to come up with a solution. Smith let out a long sigh. It seems like the god of fate isn't on our side. Director Huang, this isn't the time to be stubborn, safety is the most important thing. If an explosion were to happen here, not only me, even you, as the person in charge of this case, would be fired. I haven't finished my game yet. What are you yelling for? She didn't even lift her head as she continued to tap on the keyboard, gesturing for them to look at the screen. The strange thing was that the destroy bar that had paused for a moment actually started working again. This is impossible. You should have been discovered. Otherwise, the alarm would not have rung earlier. The tattooed man's eyes widened. That's impossible. Bojiu remained expressionless. Indeed, it was discovered, but it was the other IP addresses I set up. The firewall blocked those IPs as well. When your boss cleared those IPs, it would be enough for me to destroy the program. Didn't I tell you that I'm an expert in concealment? The tattooed man did not believe that such a technique existed. However, in the apartment on the other side of the computer, when the girl discovered that the IP address had been invaded, she sneered. Her fingers were flying, and after quickly eliminating one, she was about to teach the other party a lesson. However, he discovered that another attacking IP had appeared. The girl's eyes darkened, and she began to change her target. However, when she went over to clear it away, she discovered that it was just a remnant shadow. It was like a shadow clone in a game. He had clearly struck the other party's shadow, but when he finally reacted, he realized that he had only struck the other party's shadow. No one knew where the real person was hiding. At the end of the day, it was all because of the young man's amazing hand speed and hacking skills. The installation bar was running bit by bit, and it had already reached 90%. This number caused the tattooed man to shut his mouth. He had a strong build, but at this moment, his eyes were trembling as he thought about the possibilities. How could this be? No one should be able to break through Boss's defense system. At this moment, Bojio's left hand paused. This meant that the hunt was over. Her right hand pressed the spacebar, and with a click, she lifted the corners of her lips, spitting out 2 words. K-O, buzz, buzz, buzz. This time, it wasn't Bojio's laptop that was buzzing. Instead, it was the main computer in the apartment. The girl's hand landed heavily on the black screen. Even now, she still wasn't sure what had happened to the firewall. Check, what was the other party attacking? The girl narrowed her eyes, her gaze deep and frightening. Who exactly was it, challenging her authority over and over again? The tall and slender man immediately activated the device. After less than 10 seconds, he lifted his head. The explosion program has been destroyed. Explosion program. The girl stilled, realizing the problem. She picked up her phone, dialing a string of numbers. The tattooed man's phone rang, but he wasn't in the mood to pick up the call. The countdown timer had stopped, which was a devastating blow to him. Just because he wasn't in the mood to pick up the call didn't mean it wasn't picked up. Chin-mo walked over, picked up his phone, and pressed the answer button. The girl wasn't stupid. Once she snapped back to her senses, she realized she shouldn't have made the call. She hung up immediately, removing the card from her phone. The tall and slender man watched her actions, his heart filled with unease. Something happened to the goods, it should be the crime squad. The girl tightened her grip on the phone, her voice heavy. Don't worry, I'll inform him, he will be fine. It's time to push our shield out. Look for Rao Rong, talk to him seriously, ask him if he still wants to save his father. Yes. The tall and slender man's features were sinister. Now that his expression had sunk, a menacing aura emanated from him. They better not go overboard or he would kill them all. The girl knew what he was thinking. Don't be rash, the crime squad is only so powerful because of Chin-mo. But after this, his power will be completely taken away. Without the sales point, it won't just be our profit that's affected. But we have to find out who exactly is messing with my business. The countdown timer stopped. Inside the simple room, the tattooed man glared at Bojio. Who exactly are you? A high school student. The youngster stood up, stuffing a hand into her pocket, a devilish smile on her face. You don't have to call me Grandpa, Daddy will be teaching you a lesson for free. You. The tattooed man's face contorted when he heard the term Daddy. He wanted to retaliate but was stopped by the crime squad members behind him, pulling him into the police car. At this moment, Smith seemed to be in deep thought. Bojio paused for a moment. She thought that the other party had some information about her and would suspect her. Unexpectedly, he laughed, looking at her. You are really lucky, Z definitely isn't on the other side of the firewall. If he was there, you would have been caught long ago. But luck is also a part of victory. I wonder if you are interested in joining us and becoming one of my subordinates. Smith wasn't bad looking with his blue eyes. He looked at her affectionately since he was a fan of Oriental dolls. In his eyes, Bojio's looks were flawless. He believed that no one would reject such a good offer. Bojio stretched lazily, her voice calm. I'm not interested. With that, she reached out to grab his wrist. She lowered her head, looking at something. Needless to say, it was definitely a wound. Smith arched a brow in surprise. You probably don't know who I am or where I came from. Perhaps we can sit down and talk. Once you understand, follow me to the hospital. Before Smith could finish his sentence, Bojio dragged Chin-mo away, not even sparing him a glance. It had to be said that at certain times, Joe's charm as a boyfriend was off the charts. For example, right now. The crime squad watched as the youngster walked forward viciously. Young Master Chin was held in his hand, but he didn't say a word. It's really strange these days. Director Huang found it strange as well. Was Chin Mo the passive party when they were together? Director Huang trembled at the thought. He really couldn't accept it. Bo Jiu did things quickly, especially when she wasn't in a good mood. The reason why she rebuked the tattooed man was because of the wound on Chin Mo's hand. She had already seen it. Both of them hadn't driven over and were still wearing the cleaner's uniform. The youngster hailed a taxi. Before the driver could speak, Bo Jiu blocked Chin Mo in a corner. Without a second thought, she scooped up the bloody finger and placed it in her mouth. Disinfect it. The driver's hand slipped, almost crashing into the railing. Even someone as indifferent as young Master Chin paused for a moment. His deep eyes looked at the silver-haired, furry fellow in front of him. It was like a small animal, a canine, licking his wound. But even if it was a canine, he couldn't be too careful. A certain someone was a fox by nature, hiding too many secrets. If he wasn't careful, he wouldn't be fawning over him. Instead, he would be thinking of a way to leave. Chin Mo felt the warmth on his fingertips. When he touched the unique softness, he couldn't help lifting his finger, touching the soft ***. Bo Jiu stilled, the tips of her ears turning red. After all, the Almighty's actions were too. Bo Jiu opened her mouth, avoiding the Almighty's teasing. Chin Mo remained nonchalant. Aren't you going to disinfect it? It's done. Bo Jiu straightened before glancing to the side. The Almighty must have done it on purpose. Chin Mo pulled her back. Why do I feel like the disinfecting time isn't long enough? As he spoke, his porcelain finger touched her lips again. Just like that, it lightly brushed past her lips. It was like a feather falling, tickling her. At the start, Chin Mo didn't think much of it. But when he caught sight of the youngster's flushed neck, he couldn't help lowering his head. He turned to the side, planting a kiss on the fair skin. Then, he slowly slid down. Bo Jiu trembled, unable to react in time. A wave of numbness washed over her. When Chin Mo kissed her, he would even consider the angle. With the board in the way and his body turned sideways, the driver in front couldn't see what was happening behind him. This was convenient for him. It was convenient for him to pull her into his arms and bully her viciously. The neck, behind the ears, and the back were the most sensitive places for young girls when they were growing up. Chin Mo chose these places as well. His thin lips slid along her neck, sometimes touching it with the tip of his nose. No matter what, it could make one's whole body go numb as if they had lost all their strength. Her body wouldn't be able to withstand the teasing of an expert like Chin Mo at her age. Bo Jiu's ears turned redder as his hands entered her clothes. It was so red that it looked as though blood would drip from them. Chin Mo noticed it too, but he had never imagined that there would be a day when he would enjoy looking at someone's ears so much. They had originally been like white jade, a beautiful arc, but now, they were slowly changing color. There was an indescribable allure to them. Chin Mo's eyes dimmed, his breath inching over, landing on the back of her ears. His voice was low and raspy. Come back with me tonight. Bo Jiu shuddered again. She pushed him away and adjusted her breathing. The Almighty was using his charm, she couldn't fall for it. The warmth in Chin Mo's eyes was extinguished a little as he watched her actions. Then he heard the youngster say, "Not tonight, I have something to do later." His deep eyes turned towards Bo Jiu, his gaze deepening. All right. Chin Mo knew better than anyone else that he couldn't force her too much. He had many ways to make a certain someone go back with him, but if she wasn't willing to do it, then it would be meaningless. But there were some things that made him even more certain. The youngster in front of him didn't seem like the young master of the Fu family or a high school student. But there was nothing wrong with the information. Where exactly was it that he hadn't thought of? Qin Mo paused. Perhaps he should go through the information on the Fu family again, especially ascertain someone's daily habits. What exactly was the reason for such a drastic change in a person? He was sure it wasn't a split personality. He was a psychiatrist and he had asked about the hospital she had stayed in previously. Everything was normal. But here came the problem. Hacking skills could be self-taught, but how was it possible to react on the spot? And, why did she always want to leave him? Was there someone more important waiting for her? Chapter 925. The moment they alighted, Bojio's boyfriend Aura returned. The doctor glanced up for the third time. It's a small injury, there's no need to stay in the hospital. Just make sure it doesn't come into contact with water. The doctor wanted to tell her that it was just a cut and there wasn't a need to come to the hospital. Bojio was finally convinced, but at this moment, she paused and glanced up. He is a professional sports player and his hand is important to him. Do you want to take a scan to check his wrist? If you insist. The doctor didn't think there was a need, but the family member had requested for a scan. But why was there such a dumb person? It was just an external injury and they wanted a scan. The doctor shook his head. Qin Mo reached out to take the pen from the doctor's hand, his voice calm. There's no need, just prescribe some medicine for external injuries. The doctor let out a long sigh. Fortunately, this person still had some sense. Bojio wasn't aware that she was being treated as an irrational person. She took the prescription while instructing the Almighty, don't eat spicy food, don't smoke. With that, she paused and reached out to take the cigarettes and phone from his pocket. I'll help you settle this. Qin Mo arched a brow at the youngster beside him. Tell me, if you don't follow me back tonight, my hand won't be able to come into contact with water. How are you going to solve the problem of bathing? The doctor and the patients around them exchanged glances. Bojio paused. I really have something to do today. Tomorrow. Qin Mo agreed without a change in expression. Change the bandages tomorrow, you can't expect me to do it myself. Almighty Qin was indeed scheming. If Magician and his gang had heard this, they would definitely have ridiculed him. Back then, when he had treated his own gunshot wound, he hadn't even used anesthetics. Now, it was just a cut on his finger. The Almighty's words made Bojio's conscience feel uneasy. After all, the Almighty had been the one who had given her the medicine when her eyes had been infected. All right. Bojio nodded, the silver whirlpool above her head turning furry the moment she got serious. Qin Mo reached out and pressed the ahog down. In less than a second, it rose up again. Qin Mo arched a brow. Bojio smiled, showing her white canine teeth. It's time for a haircut. Don't you want to grow it out? Qin Mo's tone sounded casual. Bojio paused. I won't consider it for now. Yes. That's it. Bojio couldn't see anything from the Almighty's attitude. However, there was one thing that she was very clear about. All of her actions today were basically exposing herself. Smith's arrogance prevented him from picking up any other information. But the Almighty was not Smith. Not a single detail was left out in front of him. Her victory was in the aspect of rebirth. But Bojio knew that even this link was slowly collapsing. The Almighty was too smart. So many times, he had suspected her. If one day, the Almighty was no longer rational and wanted to transfer his soul, then she would really have to face his resistance and rejection. Bojio's fingers stilled. Because of this, she couldn't bring herself to talk about her childhood. At the start, she had wanted to ask the Almighty if he had any good friends when he was young. But now, she would rather he hadn't thought about it. That way, at least some decisions wouldn't be as painful. For instance, when he had to capture her personally. Bojo smiled, stretching lazily. That was why she had to run ahead of time. She didn't want to be enemies with the Almighty. According to Chin Mo's personality, after this incident, he wouldn't give her complete freedom even if he had to return home. After he boarded the Land Rover, he instructed calmly, "Follow young Master Jiao and find out where she is going." Yes. Under normal circumstances, even if the bodyguards in black weren't by Chin Mo's side, they would be 300 meters away, just like the shadows of ancient times. They would appear whenever Chin Mo needed them. Drive to the police station. Chin Mo's gaze deepened. His fingers were still damp and cold. For some reason, it reminded him of the soft and smooth jade from before. His eyes darkened even further. There was no way the higher-ups wouldn't be aware of such a huge incident. But at the same time, Director Huang received a call. The content was, "Don't be so rash in the future. What if the remote operation doesn't stop? The public will be in danger. Smith will be in charge of the interrogation." That person let out a long sigh. "Young Master Chin, please advise him. It's good to be driven, but he has to follow the procedure. Don't make a decision without a request. This will put us in a very passive position. If something really happens, who will take responsibility? Have you thought about it?" Director Huang frowned, about to retort. "All right, believe in Smith. He isn't any worse than Chin Mo." Director Huang tightened his grip when he heard the busy tone. Smith was preparing in the interrogation room. When he saw Chin Mo walk in, he glanced up. "Mr. Chin, right? I've heard a lot about you, but you should have received the news. I will be in charge of the interrogation. You can listen in, but please don't disturb me, all right?" Chin Mo stood tall, his gaze calm as he glanced over him. Instead of answering, he asked, "Have you fought many times with Z?" "Of course." Smith wasn't someone who showed off his abilities, he knew how to restrain himself. "I'm from the Fifth Avenue, everyone knows that's Z's home ground. It's hard not to fight with her." "Is that so?" Chin Mo lowered his body. "Has she been to Jiang City before?" Smith chuckled. "Mr. Chin, have you forgotten? Z is in Jiang City right now." Chin Mo replied, "I meant in the past." "Of course not." Smith arched a brow. "That's all you want to ask?" His tone sounded as though Chin Mo was asking a stupid question. Chin Mo glanced at him. "I have many questions. For example." Smith shrugged his shoulders. It was more or less as if he was implying that Smith had to ask some meaningful questions to be worthy of his answers. Chin Mo watched him, his tone unhurried. "How many times have you lost to Z?" Smith, if one had to use a word to describe Smith's current reaction, it would be as if someone had stabbed him in the chest with a knife. It was really painful. Even the expression on his face was rejecting such a question. Chin Mo replied nonchalantly, "It doesn't seem easy to answer, but I've studied psychology before. From your reaction, I don't think you've won even once." This time, Smith froze. He cursed and wanted to argue with Chin Mo, but Chin Mo didn't say a word. Instead, he turned to Chin Mo and cursed. That person had already turned around to leave. His voice was still very indifferent and noble. "With your level, it is indeed so. The interrogation must have been tiring." Bang! The door to the interrogation room was closed behind him. This was the first time Smith had the urge to kill someone. Bojo was right, wherever the Almighty was around, his venomous tongue could cause a person to collapse. In reality, there wasn't a need for weapons. But Bojo hadn't expected the Almighty to use his venomous tongue to find out about her. Fortunately, she hadn't been to Jiang City before. There was something Smith wasn't aware of. Bo Jiao had been to China, the Golden Triangle where the three countries met. That was where she had met with the fatal ambush. Time trickled by slowly. After separating from Qin Mo, Bo Jiao thought that since she was going to accompany He Honghua to the banquet, she couldn't wear a cleaner's uniform. I need to buy a decent suit, and I need to cut my hair. The youngster stuffed a hand into her pocket, blowing at the fringe in front of her eyes. She had wanted to get a haircut before heading to the men's clothing store on the same floor to pick a suit. Who knew that as soon as she entered the shop, she would be pointed at and shouted, F***CK. F***CK. Expert. The Almighty. My Savior. Bo Jiao glanced at the patient. It's you. The Almighty. The thorn-head youngster had probably just gotten a haircut. His haircut was hilarious. Let's put aside the grudge between number 1 and number 2 middle school. Can you do me a favor? Bo Jiao smiled lazily. I can't, I'm in a hurry to get my hair cut. The one washing hair in this store is my little brother. The thorn-head youngster was serious. Help me play a game, I'll get him to wash your hair first. Bo Jiao arched a brow. Why do you have so many little brothers? We're both working and studying, it isn't easy. The thorn-head youngster acted like a gangster. Bo Jiao was helpless. Use your account to play. Is it another fight for honor? It isn't honor this time. The thorn-head youngster was a little bashful. It's a girl I like, I promised to carry her in the Hero mobile game. Bo Jiao didn't need to ask for the outcome, there was a huge hole in front of her and she still had to carry him. I didn't expect her to be better than me. The gangster was a little incredulous when he said this. I just told her that I need to change to a place with a better network for another round. Actually, you have to set aside some time to find someone to carry you. Bo Jiao took out the cigarette she had snatched from the Almighty and tossed it to the thorn-head youngster. Get someone to wash my hair. In the future, don't go looking for trouble with first middle school, especially the girls. In the future, if you see a girl from first middle school walking along the commercial street and being targeted by thieves, you guys from second middle school have to protect her. The thorn-head youngster replied immediately, that's the work of trash. Don't worry, I'll give them an order tomorrow. Even though the students from second middle school aren't very good in their studies, we are very protective of the fairer sex. Was that how they were supposed to be protective of the fairer sex? Bo Jiao arched a brow and didn't say anything else. When she lay down, she took the thorn-head youngster's phone. He stood beside her, pointing at the profile picture in his friend list. This is it, isn't she pretty? Don't snatch her from me, I'm warning you. Dearest, it's just a photoshopped picture, I really can't tell if she's pretty or not. Even if she's pretty, can she be as pretty as Almighty Qin? Bo Jiao thought to herself. Even if she liked someone, she would prefer the prettiest one. What was this? If an ordinary person heard this, they would definitely feel that there wasn't any comparison. It was a guy and a girl. But he was still a Chinibu. You don't say, young Master Qin is indeed handsome, the thorn-head youngster replied seriously. Bo Jiao took the opportunity to enter the game, preparing to play casually. However, he had a request. You have to choose an assassin later. Aren't you best at playing as a tank? She still remembered the first time they had met. This Chinibu playstyle had always been charging forward. The gangster shook his head, you don't understand. Nowadays, the girls are obsessed with playing the assassin. I don't know who started the trend. He paused, it's you. When you were in the pro league, you always played the assassin, and you always got first clears. No, let me ask you, have you ever considered the feelings of people like us? It's not good to chase after girls. Everyone talks about your Highness Jiao every day, it's depressing. Bojo, she couldn't reply. She hadn't been to school for a long time and wasn't aware of the situation. First, she adjusted the page. Since she had chosen the assassin, she changed the attributes slightly. Then she invited him in and the game began. At this moment, the shampoo youngster had already started to apply the conditioner. Hero had always been a game that allowed for better teamwork between teammates. Bojo switched on the receiver but didn't turn on the microphone. She could clearly hear a girl's voice on the other side. It was from the attacking sorcerer. Hey, Ching, why do you always drag him into such a trap? He isn't a trap. The girl named Ching was playing as a tank. Bojo looked at the team composition. It was rather reasonable. She didn't care about what the other party said and charged straight into the opponent's jungle. What did Big Spade like to do when he was playing? Of course, it was to attack the opponent's jungle, leaving them with nothing to attack. After charging over, she didn't start fighting immediately. Instead, she hid in the bushes beside the blue beast. At this moment, the attacking sorcerer spoke again. Hey, can you come back? You only know how to send yourself to death. Don't bother about him, he's from number 2 middle school. His results aren't good and his brain isn't working well, the archer spoke. He sounded arrogant. The thorn-head youngster clenched his fists tightly but didn't say a word. Bojo glanced up at him. After all, she understood this Chinibu. He was the type of person who would get angry at the slightest provocation. Yet, he didn't retort. Bojo swept her gaze over the screen once more. Her gaze landed on the girl playing as the tank. It seemed like she really liked this person. His brain isn't bad. The tank girl's voice turned cold. If you guys continue acting like this, stop playing. The archer seemed to be afraid of the girl's anger. I'm just afraid he will send himself to death. If you don't like it, I won't say it. I'll lead you guys to victory later. The tank girl didn't reply. Instead, the attacking sorcerer spoke. I knew we wouldn't lose with you around. Almighty, lead us. No problem, as long as someone doesn't send himself too far. The archer's tone was still filled with mockery. Chapter 9:26. Bojo swung her long sword and revealed herself. The lethality she exuded was off the charts. It was obvious that the enemy assassin hadn't expected someone to snatch the beasts at the start of the game. Caught off guard, not only did he lose the wild monster, but he was also targeted by a long sword. F***ck, it can't be. He hurried towards the sorcerer in the middle lane. It was a pity. He wasn't as fast as the youngster's precise movements. She leaped up and used her big move. In just a few minutes, Bojo had reduced the enemy's HP to a critical level. The man gritted his teeth and finally escaped to the defense tower. However, was this the end of it? He had obviously forgotten. Before he entered the tower, the young man threw a flying dagger straight at his head. Even though he had escaped into the defense tower, the damage was still there. He wanted to return to the city as soon as he took a step. A deafening sound effect appeared in the game. K.O. First HP. A magnificent first kill. However, some noobs didn't look at the map. Before the numbers appeared, the attacking sorcerer spoke. Didn't I tell you not to send yourself to death? You must be drunk to play like this. Before she could finish her sentence, the numbers on the screen changed. 1-0. Did that mean they had killed someone? The girl's voice froze. She couldn't believe it and forgot to close her mouth. That was the first kill. And they were in the enemy's territory. With the noob's abilities, it wasn't possible. Lucky. The archer's voice was heard. The sorcerer replied immediately. He probably burned some incense before he left. Heh. Bojo was still running on the map. Once the enemy discovered her tracks, they would definitely chase after her. At this moment, she had killed someone and couldn't be at full HP. She was left with half a tank of HP. Once she was controlled by the sorcerer, she would be killed instantly. But with her speed and maneuvering, an ordinary person wouldn't be able to control her. At this moment, Bojo sent a signal to gather. The signal was sent to the sorcerer in the middle lane. Usually, the assassin would lure the enemy over. As long as the sorcerer in the middle lane cooperated, the two of them would be able to kill the enemy instantly. Bojo paused in the bushes, preparing to fight back. However, there was a problem. The mage girl in the middle lane didn't hear the signal at all. She didn't even look at the map coordinates and was still clearing the troops. Bojo was an assassin. The moment she rushed forward, she couldn't retreat in time. The opposing mage unleashed a powerful spell. Bojo used the strength in her fingers to turn and avoid the fatal blow. However, at this moment, it was no longer suitable to counterattack. It was just the start of the game, and she didn't have enough money or HP. Her opponent was full HP, and the map showed that reinforcements had arrived. Bojo turned and returned to her own tower. This time, she finally understood what it meant to be tricked. He had always played in the pro league, and his teammates would only have problems with their hand speed or technique. But this person. Bojo glanced at her sorcerer and archer. They didn't even know how to look at the map and didn't listen for signals. How did they get the confidence to fly with the Almighty? There was one more thing Bojo wanted to ask. Why was an archer shooting the blue beasts? Not fighting the red beasts, but the blue beasts. Was he trying to steal her wild? His strength was a trap for his teammates, dear. Bojo scanned the area and pondered for a moment. She decided to adjust her strategy. Chapter 9:27. They had to develop and strengthen their finances before they could produce equipment. That was the decision Bojo made after understanding the situation. Which meant that she wasn't going to participate in the team battle in the near future. Everyone who played the assassin class knew how lethal an assassin could be, right? No, the long-range archers and some attacking sorcerers were the main attackers. Under normal circumstances, the assassin class not only had strict control requirements, but more importantly, they had to be able to analyze the situation. They had to know when to attack, when to retreat, and when to counterattack. The strengths of an assassin were speed and explosive power. However, if one thought that an assassin should be like a tank and only charge forward without caring about anything else, then that would be a big mistake. It was obvious that the archer and sorceress in the middle lane thought that way. When the enemy rushed over, they shouted, "Hurry, gather in the middle lane, prepare for the team battle." The defense towers on both the top and bottom lane were being attacked. At this moment, they weren't going to save the towers and were going for a team battle. Bojo obviously wouldn't head over immediately. She would clear the troops around the tower and hit money everywhere she went. Her hand speed was so fast that the gangster was stunned. That was what he was thinking. Why did the same account play the same game character? How did that character become so powerful in the hands of the other party? It was unbelievable. Just as Bojo was about to attack the defense tower after the enemy on the top lane escaped with low HP, something happened in the middle lane. The sorceress came out of the defense tower. She didn't even release a stun fireball, instead, she used her big move. She was confident that she would be able to destroy the enemy with a big move. But it was obvious that she didn't just release her skill, she didn't measure the distance. That big move had indeed hit something, but it hadn't hit the opponent. This was really awkward. Such a low-level mistake in the game. Seriously, she didn't know what to say. She could only say that she couldn't escape. Sure enough, the opponent's assassin leaped over and gave the female sorceress a close-range critical strike. Together with a stun from the archer, the female sorceress was killed in less than 2 seconds. Bojo's 1v0 became a 1v1. It was a draw. The male archer ignored the tower and ran towards the city with full HP and mana. As he ran, he asked, "Where's the assassin? Don't you know about the team battle? Do you have to do this?" Bojo couldn't be bothered to say anything to those who abandoned their towers when they were full of health. She skimmed over from the wilderness and jumped into her defense tower. She cleared the troops, protected the tower, and earned money. She did everything without any delay. Then, she jumped to the right and continued to kill monsters in the wilderness. She continued to increase her finances. Seeing this, the female magician's voice was filled with anger. "Why are you still fighting monsters at a time like this? Don't you know how to team up? Do you even know how to fight?" The girl who was playing the tank couldn't help but say, "Assassins need wild monsters the most. You guys just need to defend the tower. Don't form a party first. We don't need a party in the early stages. Then he's too much of a scammer." The female magus voice was still unhappy. "If this goes on, we'll be dragged down and lose." Bojo arched a brow as she held on to the red beasts. She only had time to type one word. "Oh." It was that "oh" word that made the female magician so angry. Chapter 928. Forget it. The male archer turned on the voice chat. "He can do whatever he wants, we'll team up and attack the middle lane." The female sorcerer replied confidently, she maneuvered her character to move forward. There were 2 opponents as well. It was the same formation, a sorcerer and an archer. The female sorcerer saw the opportunity and immediately used a big move. This time, she managed to catch someone. But the opponent's sorcerer seemed to know how to play. He released a stun fireball and with the help of the archer, he knocked the female sorcerer out on the spot. The next moment, he used a big move. KO. The female sorcerer died again. This time, the male archer didn't run because he was hit by the arrow, slowing him down. He couldn't escape even if he wanted to. Seeing that he was about to be killed to critical health. Right at this moment, a sharp blade flashed past. A small knife symbol appeared above the archer's head. The next moment, Bojo appeared like a bolt of lightning, a perfect explosive attack. In an instant, the archer's HP dropped to a critical level. At this moment, the sorcerer used another stun ball. Bojo tilted her body, dodging it perfectly. She threw a flying knife at the sorcerer before sweeping her long sword. Both the archer and sorcerer were on the verge of death. At this moment, their lives were hanging by a thread. Bojo just needed one more move and she would be able to take both lives easily. However, the male archer wasn't aware of the situation and continued to attack fiercely. Coincidentally, it was shot by him just like that. The game's music blared. Double kill. The screen showed that the 2 lives were taken by the male archer. Hence, the female sorcerer's tone became even more eccentric. "Look, that's the Almighty. He should learn from some traps and just charge recklessly. It's fine, I'll be watching from the back. Even if he charges into the crowd, he'll still be able to survive." The male archer really believed that he had taken the credit for the double kill. This kid seemed to have forgotten who had saved him when he was almost killed. Why was it the other way around? Bojo glanced over at the thorn-head youngster. Where did he come from? Is that how they play? He's from number 1 middle school. The gangster clenched his fist. That's why I don't like these students from number 1 middle school. But I have to admit that he's very good at playing games. Bojo's lips twitched. You call this good at gaming? He just got a double kill, the gangster said seriously. Bojo arched a brow, her tone calm. He won't have the chance to kill again. Why? The gangster didn't understand. Bojo moved her fingers, clearing another wave of soldiers. Without me, he would have been killed. It was a fitting scene. The moment Bojo finished her sentence, news of someone being wiped out came from the middle lane. This time, it was the opponent who got the double kill. The score changed from 3-2 to 3-4. It was obvious that Bojo's team was lagging behind. Not only that, but they also destroyed one of their defense towers. Even the second defense tower was only left with half of its original structure. Fortunately, there was still the girl who played the tank. After returning to her position, she defended the half wall of the tower. The male archer was rather humble. "It's my fault this time, I made a mistake." The female sorcerer immediately said, "It's okay to die once, everyone makes mistakes, unlike some noob who is still fighting in the wilderness while we are in a team battle." But just as the female sorcerer said this, another sound effect played. Bojo killed someone in the wilderness, successfully tying the score to 4-4. "We're really lucky to meet someone with low HP," the male archer said as he looked at the map. His tone was slightly sinister. The female sorcerer was full of disdain. "It's all because you and I beat the opponent to low HP, allowing some noob to take advantage of the situation. No wonder he had to team up with us, he wanted to take advantage of us." Just as she was saying this, Bojo led the troops and jumped to the bottom of the defense tower. Successfully destroying the second defense tower on the top lane. Then, she maneuvered her character into the jungle and disappeared again. Other than hiding in the bushes, what else does this noob know? "That's enough." The female sorcerer was still commenting. The male archer was still confident. "Ignore him, I'm here, there's no need to be afraid." Hence, the two of them started to charge forward. This time, the opponent was alone. It was a 2v1 and the opponent didn't know how to play. The female sorcerer successfully swept the opponent and took a life. "Noob, watch out, this is called a game." As she spoke, she took a step forward. A line of words appeared on the screen. "Tyrant King has been killed." Killing the Tyrant King in the wilderness would double the team's finances and experience. This was beneficial to the entire team. The one who killed the Tyrant King wasn't anyone else, it was the noob that the female sorcerer was talking about, Bojo. Did Spades's FC King come for nothing? Whenever they wanted to clear a dungeon, they would specially choose the difficult hidden bosses. That was why they shocked Zone C time and time again. At this moment, the male archer was still speaking. "It's normal for an assassin to kill a Tyrant King. If I was an assassin, I would have killed the Beast King by now." Bojo replied calmly, "You can give it a try and see how long you can last before being killed by the Beast King." The male archer could tell that she was being sarcastic. His anger rose. "What do you mean? Are you trying to say that I'm not a good player and that I'm a noob?" Under normal circumstances, no one would reply to his question since they had to be careful. But when the word "yes" appeared on the screen, the male archer wanted to curse. "Hee, everyone can see who's the noob. What about you? You aren't even participating in the team battle, what right do you have to criticize others? Don't listen to him, let's go kill the Beast King. There are 4 of us now, it'll be easy." Was that really the case? They walked over. Bojo sent a message to retreat. Unfortunately, only the girl who was playing the tank hesitated for a moment. The rest of them surrounded the wild dominator boss. The Beast King was stronger than the Tyrant in terms of attack power and HP, making it harder to attack in the early stages. But that wasn't the main point. The main point was that the other party had probably gone to the Beast King. As expected, Bojo hurriedly turned invisible and retreated. But it was too late. The female sorcerer and male archer had been eliminated in this wave of team battle. Fortunately, the Beast King hadn't been killed yet. The other party was still fighting. Everyone knew that the Beast King would belong to the one who dealt the last blow. This was what people often referred to as snatching the Beast King. Bojo hid in the bushes, calculating the Beast King's HP. At the crucial moment, a knife flew over. Chapter 929. Everyone knew what the consequences of this slash would be. The last attack was full of explosive power. It directly stole the Dominator boss that the other side had worked so hard to defeat and successfully captured the Wyvern. Damn, is the assassin on the other side using a cheat code? How can you snatch it like this? I've already been killed by him twice. I feel so wronged. Don't be so long-winded. Kill him first. There were 5 Dominator bosses, but none of them had full HP. But there were tanks, long-range shooters, and team control sorcerers, all of them surging towards her. Bojo glanced at the map on her phone but didn't turn back. The reason was simple. There were 2 people on the way back. One was a tank, and the other was a mage. Going back was basically suicide. He moved sideways towards the opponent's wilderness, making use of the bushes and walls in the wilderness to perfectly avoid the long-range cannons fired by the archer. This kid is too bold. Stop him, we must stop this assassin. However, Bojo wasn't going to let them catch her so easily. When she escaped, she didn't forget to throw a flying dagger at them. 2 people were sent flying in a row, and both of them were slowed down by her. He was about to escape. The young man raised his hand, and the towel he was using to dry his hair accidentally covered the young man's eyes. Bojo's first reaction was that it was over. As expected, the resurrected teammates didn't give her any support. They were separated by a wall. One of them was low on HP, while the other was half HP. Both of them had used their ultimate moves on her. In other words, if their archers and mages attacked together, their opponents would be helpless. But no one cooperated. No one even tried to save her. When Bojo sat up, the character on her phone had already revived in the city center. The female mage was still unhappy. Everyone's back. Why did you rush in alone? You'll be surrounded. Li Shui, he stole the Dominator boss. Did you only see him being surrounded? Did you not see him steal the boss? The tank girl was really angry this time. You're the one who used your skills the wrong way, not him. The sorceress paused for a moment, then said in an indifferent tone, So, Qing, you still think I'm wrong? Then let him fight on his own. Let's see how many times he'll be surrounded and killed. What the sorceress didn't expect was that when she said those words, Kieran's voice suddenly rang out. Bojo really went alone. At the very least, there were wyverns at the front and troops at the back. It was equivalent to having a tank to help her resist the tower. The defense tower at the bottom lane had been turned into an empty shell by Bojo. The male archer was still in the middle lane. You don't want to join us and still insist on taking the wrong path. I know, the female magus snorted coldly. Looking at the map, the 5 people on the opposite side were all heading towards the pit. He added, they're basically looking for death, alright. No, something's wrong. Instead, someone from the opposing side reacted. It was because he usually watched the pro scene, but now he only paid attention to one thing. That was, the income of this assassin was more than double of theirs. In other words, with the same game character, the opponent's attack power would be much higher than theirs. Don't go. Before he could finish his sentence, the game's music blared. K.O., 1 kill. Look, he's dead. The female magus shrugged. And you still say you're not a scammer. But as soon as she finished speaking, her expression changed. That was because the second announcement sounded in the game. Double kill. Double kill? What did that mean? The person who had died wasn't the pit, but the opponent. That wasn't all, the pit had killed 2 of their players in one go, even when he was surrounded by 5 people. The male archer was calm. It's just a double kill, he won't be able to escape anymore. But his luck isn't too bad. The male archer wanted to give the female magus and himself a way out, attributing everything to luck. But Bojo wasn't going to give them the chance to argue. She retreated, hiding behind the bushes. The opponent was still shouting, F***ck, he actually dodged it again. Where's the tank? It can enlarge, squat him. The one who said this was the only DPS on the other side. He didn't know that the moment he finished speaking, the assassin who had been running to the right shook. After changing his body shape, he stuck close to Bojo and swept her across. All of a sudden, the third in-game sound effect rang out. 3 kill. But that wasn't the end. Bojo tilted her body, the flying knife piercing through, reducing the speed. The opponent's assassin couldn't even walk, much less escape. With a swoosh, the sword landed. 4 kill. This time, the sound effect was different. Be it the other party or the hairdresser, both of them were dumbfounded. The Thornhead youngster's jaw dropped. That works too. Bojo replied, her fingers twirling. The Thornhead youngster reminded her, aren't you leaving? He's in critical condition. The opponent was a tank, he couldn't move. I won't leave with a dragon. Bojo's phone switched back and forth, she seemed to be changing equipment. The image that flashed by made the Thornhead youngster dizzy. The Thornhead youngster rubbed his temples. Why are you still fighting when he's in critical condition? He's a tank. He doesn't have any big moves left, Bojo replied faintly. The Thornhead youngster was confused. Seriously? How could she remember that? How could she let him have a good time? Sometimes, you won't die if you don't escape, Bojo said, charging forward with her sword. She swept across, catching the opponent off guard. The tank didn't have time to react and was already in critical condition. At first, he thought it was over. After all, the city center was behind him. As long as he returned to the city, he would be back to full HP. Unexpectedly, at the moment when he walked back to the city, a flying knife directly stabbed at him. K.O. 5 consecutive kills. The Thornhead youngster took a deep breath when he saw this. The female sorcerer and male archer froze on the spot. After all, everyone could hear the sound effect in the game. It was a 1v5 and he was surrounded on the high ground, but he still managed to kill 5 consecutive kills. This time, they couldn't say anything about the opponent relying on luck. The atmosphere was awkward. Everything in front of them, including the tall figure standing in the middle of the screen and the shattered city, was a harsh slap to their faces. They won the match. They didn't just win. Everyone felt as though they had been put on a show by the assassin in black. Especially the last 5 consecutive kills on the high ground. The opponent couldn't help but ask Bojo to be his disciple. Bojo didn't agree, returning the phone to its original owner. She looked at herself in the mirror, deep in thought. It wasn't an easy match. There were even a few times when she had to escape to save her life. She wasn't like this when she was in a professional match, because no matter where she appeared, the team would rush to support her. She didn't need to escape, she just needed to cut in quickly and accurately. It was especially so when she was in a team with the Almighty. Bojo thought about it. She roughly understood what Fengyi meant when he said, "You still need to train more." When playing hero, one person could indeed carry the entire field, but really sports wasn't a single-player game. It was to be like the Almighty, who could carry the entire field when he was alone and could coordinate well in a team battle. It seemed like before the National League. It was time to change what she lacked the most. On the other side, the silver-haired youngster stood up with a smile. On the other side, the thorn-head youngster pondered for a moment before opening the WeChat discussion group. With a flushed face, he said, "I'm sorry, I wasn't the one who played the previous round. I'm not good as an assassin, but I can play as a tank. Even if it's a pit, I can block in front of you and give you time to escape. What I mean is, are you still willing to play with me?" In reality, if the thorn-head youngster hadn't said it, no one would have known he had found someone else to play for him. After all, everyone was still immersed in the shocking quintuple kill just now. But to the thorn-head youngster, he didn't have a single good point. He wasn't good at his studies, and even though he looked good, he wasn't smart. He liked to be the boss, and even in games, he couldn't beat the boss of number 1 middle school. The latter was a huge blow to him. You guys wouldn't understand the hatred between number 2 middle school and number 1 middle school. Who was better? It was a matter of pride. In comparison, he wasn't as good-looking as the youngster. After all, pretty boys were trending nowadays. A tough guy like him wasn't cute. But he knew there was something he had to follow. Things should be as they were. He wanted to act cool. Hence, when he saw the youngster, he wanted to win. But at that time, he had thought it through. If he won, he would tell the youngster the truth. Even if he was a bastard, he wouldn't lie to the girl he liked. That was also the reason why Bojo felt this Chinibu was worth befriending. The WeChat discussion group went silent for a second. The next second, the sorcerer girl, Li Shue's voice popped out. "I knew it. How can a pit like you play so well? Playing games requires intelligence. Li Shue, don't make things difficult for the students from number 2 middle school. It's not easy to find someone to play for him." It was obvious that the person who said this was the male archer. The thorn-head youngster clenched his fists. Bojo glanced over. "This is the second time you have to control your temper." "I can't help it, they are friends." When the thorn-head youngster lowered his head, he looked like a large dog. "Otherwise, with my temper, do you think I wouldn't beat them up?" Hee, it's an insult to my reputation as the boss of number 2 middle school." Bojo arched a brow but didn't reply. Just then, a voice came from the other side. "Where are you now?" "Outside." The thorn-head youngster's voice was still muffled. "Come to my house." The girl's voice was cold, but the words she said were warm. "Who wants you to be good at games? Hurry up and study with me. You don't want to go to university anymore, do you?" The thorn-head youngster's eyes lit up. "I'm going over now." The girl was obviously trying to get back at the thorn-head youngster. Some people are indeed smart, but remember, I like people like you who are a little dumb and a little pit. MMH. The thorn-head youngster nodded continuously. Bojo seemed to be able to see a certain Chinibu's ears pricking up. Seriously. Did his lackeys from number 2 middle school know about him? But, from your tone, you two seem to know each other. We live in the same district, but we weren't familiar with each other in the past. We only got to know each other after a while. With that, the thorn-head youngster turned and patted Bojo's shoulder. "I heard that you like young Master Qin to the point of insanity. But you still haven't moved his heart, right?" "Bojo. Who did you hear that from? Is that how you use the adjective crazy? To be honest, I used to despise people like you. What's that called again?" "Oh right, gay." The thorn-head youngster frowned. "But you are different, you aren't a sissy at all. As the boss of No. 2 middle school, I shouldn't be talking to you about this since destroying you has always been our school's plan. But this time, it's different. I feel that there's something wrong with number 1 middle school recently. Don't always chase after your almighty and forget your mission as the boss of number 1 middle school. Bojo. What did he mean by mission as the boss of number 1 middle school? This was a conversation between a Chinibu. What problem? Bojo asked casually. The thorn-head youngster caressed his chin. Someone wants to buy the trending searches. It's the girl who played with us just now. Buy the trending searches. Bojo frowned. Why would a high school student want to buy the trending searches? The thorn-head youngster shrugged. I don't know the details, but I know who her target is. It's a web novelist who seems to be depressed. Bojo glanced up. Why are you telling me this? Aren't you any sports idol? The thorn-head youngster pouted. An idol has to display his strength and let the people who like you learn from him. Someone should believe your words. My girlfriend likes that web novelist quite a bit. Bojo arched a brow. Your girlfriend? The girl who played with Tank just now. Isn't she pretty? The thorn-head youngster asked shyly. Bojo replied lazily, she just asked you to go home for tuition. How did she become your girlfriend? Didn't you hear her say she likes me? The thorn-head youngster shook his head. Forget it. Someone like you who doesn't get confessed to often wouldn't understand. Bojo, honestly, this isn't the only problem in number 1 middle school. As the top student in the school, you probably don't realize it. Anyway, it's quite troublesome. The thorn-head youngster revealed another piece of information. Previously, I saw someone from number 1 middle school with the local tyrant. He seems to be a mistress and is helping the other party to do something. The local tyrant seems to be doing a big business recently. In short, it's very profitable. But the dangerous thing is, when I went to socialize with my old man, I heard him say that as long as he took down the school, he would earn more than that. Speaking of which, aren't the students from number 1 middle school all dumb geese who only know how to study? Why is it more chaotic than number 2 middle school? It didn't seem to be important, but it revealed a lot of information. Bojo memorized everything without batting an eyelid. She stuffed her hands into her pockets and glanced at the clock hanging on the wall. I have something on, I have to go. All right, the thorn-head youngster replied. When I go to socialize again, I'll help you look after the students from number 1 middle school. I don't want you to die before I can even fight with you, benefactor. After Bojo left, someone in the WeChat group asked, who was the assassin just now? I recorded it and posted it online. Someone said that the assassin was so cool, can you tell me who it was? The thorn-head youngster thought for a moment before typing an ID. Spade Z. In an instant, the WeChat group exploded. Spade Z. Oh my god. It's actually my Highness Joe. Is he still there? Is he still there? I want to confess. No wonder he got the first kill in the first match, it's indeed my big Spade style. He even stole the dragon, he's so shameless, so cool. He must be really depressed. That's why when Big Spade is around, don't fight the dragon, it'll ruin your life. Li Shui just said that Big Spade is a scammer. Li Shui, who was called out, paused for a moment, then said, it's just a game. Of course, professional players play better than us normal players. To be honest, I don't know all of these esports players, but I don't really like them. It's not that I'm being biased, but I just feel that these people are leading the students astray. Instead of studying, they're always playing games. It's not good to be addicted to games. The thorn-head youngster didn't get angry at all. After hearing her words, he turned on the voice chat. Student Li Shui, think about it before you speak. Who is the number 1 in number 1 middle school? It's the person who doesn't study properly. Spade Z is an esports player, but in your words, he's addicted to games. How dare you say he's not biased? If you think games aren't good, you don't have to play because it only shows the bad side. On the other hand, there are people who work hard and never give up. Even if they score 0, they can still shine in the esports arena. If you don't understand this logic, shut up. Qing, this is the person you said you like. That's enough, how can you be so rude? Li Shui sneered. Qing also turned on the voice chat, her tone unhurried. If speaking the truth is rude, then we can't do anything about it. Li Shui paused, she didn't expect the other party to put her in such a difficult position. She threw down a sentence. You really learn from the people you interact with. Then she went offline. She had more important things to do, there was no need to argue with them. Just like that, the entire incident seemed to have calmed down, but in fact, the darkness was just starting to descend. It was written in a book that the human heart was scarier than ghosts. And no one could predict the human heart. Time trickled by. At the largest garden-style hotel in Jiang City, there was a gathering for businesswomen. For such an annual gathering, the guests were all successful and reputable women in Rivertown. They weren't just rich, they had to be classy. Hence, as long as one was from Rivertown, he or she would want to attend such a gathering. The place was filled with fresh flowers, all wooden decorations. There was a piano in the middle, a champagne tower placed high, and on the wooden table covered with a white tablecloth, besides candles, there were all sorts of fruits. Not far away, there was a chef making pastries and some barbecued meat. This meant that people could order whatever they wanted to eat on the spot. In the past, He Honghua didn't have the right to attend this gathering. It wasn't because she wasn't rich enough, but because the other party invited Su Mei. This time, He Honghua attended because she was clear that she had to do something at the right time. Her Jiu was already a professionally sports player. She was bound to become more and more popular in the future, to the point that almost all the students were talking about her. Because of this, she couldn't step back. She didn't want people to say, "Look, that's her." Her mother came from the countryside, and she's a shrew who can't even write. When people talked about Jiu, they would say, "Look at that person." Humans were just that weird. In the past, He Honghua never cared about what others said about her. But once her child was involved, everything changed. It didn't matter what her family background was. But she didn't want such things to become a burden to her Jiu. He Honghua had always been a carefree person. This time, she put on makeup for the first time. She even went to find a stylist just to look presentable. She had dressed up in the past, but no matter how she dressed up, she couldn't shake off the title of shrew in such a place. He Honghua was still hesitating, wondering if she should go in. A tall and slender figure walked over from her left, reaching out to place a hand on her shoulder. The youngster had a clean and faint smile. "Mom, why aren't you going in? Why are you standing here?" Bo Jiu was dressed in a well-ironed white suit with a bow on her collar. Her lips were lifted, her bright eyes and white teeth making her look like a prince. There weren't many people who could resist a suit of this color, but Bo Jiu seemed to be born with a demonic aura. Even though it was white, she could still exude a devilish aura. It was very attractive. Even He Honghua felt that her Jiu was so handsome that it made her blush. Her round face broke into a smile, filled with delight. Bo Jiu arched a brow, bending her arm into an arc. "Let's go, Madam He, enter." He Honghua had never been invited like this before. She paused for a moment, then clumsily moved her arm forward. "Madam He, be more confident. Trust me, your Jiu is so handsome, it will definitely give you extra points." Bo Jiu's face didn't blush when she said this, her heart wasn't racing. Instead, there was a smile on her beautiful face. She was really narcissistic. But because of this sentence, He Honghua's heart wasn't as chaotic and uneasy as when she had first arrived. Yes, be more confident. She was here to eat. Bojo glanced over as she walked, observing He Honghua's side profile. When she saw the smile, her lips lifted. He Honghua still had to ask, "What did you do today?" "I didn't see you at the club, your teammates said you weren't training today." Bojo wasn't going to tell He Honghua about defusing the bomb. She reached out and tugged her suit, smiling devilishly. "I went to buy this and even got a haircut. I'm going to accompany Madame He to the banquet, how can I not bring my own equipment to carry the crowd?" He Honghua laughed. "You child," the moment they entered, they caught everyone's attention. Chapter 930. The male archer from before was also at the banquet. Compared to Bojo's suit, he was dressed with more thought. He was wearing a British tuxedo that was tailored well, making him look tall and straight. The male archer wasn't anyone else, he was the celebrity son that Guo Rong had mocked when she heard that He Honghua was attending the banquet, Yi Sihua. When he found out that movie Queen was coming, he felt that his chance had arrived. They were in the same industry after all, hence, he had received some news. Recently, movie Queen had secured a huge role overseas and the director was internationally renowned. He was currently searching for a mysterious Asian youngster. If he received movie Queen Anne's recommendation, he would be able to act in the film. Wouldn't his net worth be that of a C-list celebrity? Those that weren't in the industry probably wouldn't know. As long as he acted in a huge film overseas, he would receive a steady stream of domestic resources. Other than that, he would be classified as an actor. Hence, to Yi Sihua, today was truly a ladder for him to climb up. As for his acting skills, who cared? This was an era where looks mattered. As long as his acting skills were good, there wouldn't be a problem. There were people in the industry who wanted him to study. What a joke, he had to squeeze time for his classes because he was worried that the paparazzi would say that his acting had affected his studies. He had to be a role model so he didn't have the time to study. Anyway, he could just use a stunt double for some scenes. As long as he had connections, he wouldn't have to worry about not being popular. Right now was the best time for him to grab hold of this opportunity. In terms of looks, he was confident that no one could beat him. But Yi Sihua tightened his grip on his wine glass when his gaze was stolen. The people that had been chatting with him paused, their gazes landing on the person who had stolen his limelight today. Yi Sihua was still in the group chat, obviously aware that the person who had stolen his limelight was Spade Z. But they didn't know that he was the shooter. Regardless of whether he was playing or interacting with others, he would never reveal his real identity. At most, he would say that he was from No. 1 middle school. After all, he was a celebrity. But he had never experienced such a feeling. It was fine that he had been outshone in the game. What right did this upstart from the countryside have to come here and steal his limelight? Guo Rong didn't like He Honghua and the others either. In fact, this was not surprising. Some of the ladies who often socialized knew that Guo Rong and Su Mei were very close. Back then, she had looked down on He Honghua and even said that Guo Rong could not understand why that plain and fat country girl was so persistent. Could it be that Guo Rong could not see what she and Su Mei had sensed before? If she knew what was good for her, she would quickly give up. She had no self-awareness at all. Hence, when Bojo and He Honghua started walking, her first reaction was to pout. However, people like them would never show their true thoughts on their faces. This was the elegance they flaunted. This was also the reason why Guo Rong felt that she was superior to others. She looked down on people like He Honghua who came from the countryside and wanted to join them no matter what their status was. Not to mention that son of hers. Not only was she a love-struck fool, she even dared to attack his own father. Guo Rong had also heard Su Mei talk about this person. Other than being a professional sports player, there was nothing good about him. But even though esports sounded nicer, it was just a game. He was really a person at the bottom of the social hierarchy, trying to find an opportunity to bite others. Guo Rong retracted her gaze from the two of them, holding onto her wine glass with a smile. She couldn't even be bothered to look at them. Come, Sihua, follow your Aunt Yang Huan more, it will be easier for her to introduce you later. I remember that you have interacted with movie Queenan before, right? Guo Rong was obviously trying to raise her son's social status. Yi Sihua had indeed met movie Queenan, but he had been seated below the stage, watching the goddess of the film and television industry receive her award. But that didn't stop him from using this incident to create hype. We met when we were overseas. Oh. As the organizer of the banquet, Yang Huan arched a brow and smiled. Sihua, you are quite impressive. Yi Sihua replied humbly, it's nothing much, it was just a chance to attend an event and learn from a senior. You're doing quite well now. A lot of people are asking me how I met you when they saw our photo. You'll definitely become famous in the future. Yang Huan smiled and said, don't forget to support your Auntie Yang. Yi Sihua was confident. I definitely won't forget. But even so, he didn't manage to attract the attention he wanted. Because the ladies beside him weren't talking about him, but the nouveau riche who wasn't even fit to carry his shoes. That's him, right? Spade Z. I don't know why my daughter likes him so much. My daughter isn't interested in anything other than solving questions. This time, she actually said she wanted to surpass the school hunk in her school to be a qualified fan. What do you think she's talking about? My son is even more interesting, he recently cut his hair and said he wanted to join the military. He said he couldn't even beat a gigolo in his life, it was too humiliating. Now that he joined the military, it fulfilled our wishes. In the past, he always thought he was the best in the world and was extremely arrogant. But to be able to beat my son down, he is indeed impressive. It's good to have such a child. He seems rather sensible, unlike what Su Mei said in the past. There were plenty of whispers in the banquet. But Yi Sihua wanted to share all the whispers with him. Both mother and son had the same thought. Guo Rong didn't feel comfortable either. After all, in all the events she had attended, as long as her son was around, others would always be envious of her. Today's banquet wasn't going according to her expectations. Guo Rong narrowed her eyes. As the invited party, she had to greet the host. It was basic etiquette. Hence, the moment Bo Jiu entered, she brought He Honghua towards Yang Huan. If it had been He Honghua herself, she wouldn't have been confident. But with Bo Jiu around, things were different. He Honghua greeted Yang Huan naturally. To Yang Huan, maintaining harmony in social settings was basic etiquette. Even if He Honghua wasn't invited, it didn't make a difference to her. She knew how to make polite small talk. In the past, Guo Rong could have done the same. But now, she couldn't do it. She wasn't someone who deserved to attend such banquets, how could she bring up the tempo? Boss He, it's been a while. Guo Rong smiled and said, your son is becoming more and more outstanding. I think our situation is quite similar. We only have one son in our family. However, Sihua has always been sensible and humble. He has never caused any trouble outside. Even though he is famous now, he has not become arrogant. As for your son. She paused, frowning before continuing, the negative news hasn't stopped. Actually, as parents, we have to consider everything for our child. It's good to be famous, but if he isn't, he would be rash and easily get into trouble. It's better for our family to keep an eye on him. It's more important for him to cultivate both internally and externally. I remember your son wasn't used to such occasions, how is he now? He should have learned how to drink red wine, right? Of course, she still remembered Guo Rong. But she didn't have a deep impression of her son. The reason Guo Rong mentioned how to drink red wine was to mock the first time she had attended a gathering with Su Mei. When others had clinked glasses with her, she had gulped down large mouthfuls. She hadn't been aware of this aspect. At that time, the original body had treated Su Mei as a good person. She hadn't known that Su Mei had brought her out just to embarrass her in public. And Guo Rong had been one of the participants. He Honghua understood what Guo Rong was implying. Her gaze dimmed. She told herself not to be rash. If she was rash, she would fall into the other party's trap. It was better to tolerate it. If she lost her temper, it wouldn't be worth it for her Jiu to be criticized for her lack of upbringing. According to Bo Jiu's personality, such words would go in one ear and out the other. She would just ignore it. But today, He Honghua was here. In this world, there would always be such a person. You couldn't allow her to suffer. To Bo Jiu, He Honghua was such an existence. I've been doing some research on red wine recently. Bo Jiu stuffed a hand into her pants, a devilish smile on her face. Thank you for your concern, Boss Gua. In Guo Rong's memory, the youngster was still a weak and useless nouveau riche. Now that she heard the youngster's words, she stilled for a moment before breaking into a smile. It's good that you know. I would like to get Sihua to teach you. Both of you are around the same age. Even though there are differences in some aspects, it should be easier for you to communicate. Of course, other than gaming, you don't do anything else. Unlike our Sihua, he has to study every day besides reading scripts. Bo Jiu lifted her lips. Boss Gua, why do you think I don't do anything else? Aren't you esports players just gaming? There wasn't anything wrong with Guo Rong's words and actions, but everyone could hear the disdain in them. Bo Jiu looked at her, her voice calm. I think Boss Gua has some misunderstandings about our profession. We don't just play games. A professional esports player has to be online for at least 8 hours a day. 4 of those hours are for basic training, reflexes, hand speed, positioning, as well as the coordination between the team members. They have to be practiced repeatedly. Also, Boss Gua, I believe that respecting people from all walks of life is the foundation of being a boss. What do you think, Boss Gua? Guo Rong was at a loss for words. She had never expected this little country bumpkin to become someone she couldn't fight back against. She had led her into the gutter without a word. There were many people present and they had started their careers in various industries. Of course, she knew what mistake she had made. Yang Huan didn't want anything unpleasant to happen during the banquet since Mizan was coming later. So, when she saw any signs of trouble, she immediately said, kids these days are more thoughtful than we were back then. Director Gua doesn't mean that. Come, let's have a toast. Let's keep our words in the wine. Yang Huan wasn't being fair, but regardless, Guo Rong was someone she interacted with regularly. He Honghua was an outsider after all. Inviting her to the banquet was just to make up the numbers. Between the two, she would definitely lean towards Guo Rong. I've felt like something was missing since just now. Yang Huan glanced towards Yi Sihua. I haven't chosen the music yet. Sihua, why don't you play a song for us? Actually, the way they treated each other was equivalent to leaving He Honghua and Bo Jiu in the cold. Bo Jiu had never attended such events with He Honghua before. But when she saw that He Honghua was used to it, the warmth in her eyes dissipated. How many times had she been ostracized for it to become a habit? She knew how much effort He Honghua had put into this banquet. Perhaps, she didn't care. But even if she didn't care, she shouldn't be in such a state. It didn't matter if she didn't attend such a banquet. Bo Jiu was about to speak when a familiar voice came from beside her. A familiar voice came from beside him. Auntie Yang suggested it, so it should be possible. But I heard young Master Fu's words just now, and it seems to be very impressive. Why don't I play a part for young Master Fu? I don't need to play any famous songs, just basic piano basics. Young Master Fu should know, right? Bojiu glanced up towards Yi Sihua, arching a brow. Was this the male archer from earlier? Yi Sihua wasn't aware that she was good at disguising herself and was extremely sensitive to voices. Moreover, Yi Sihua's tone was filled with disdain. Naturally, she could tell who he was. Or do you mean that young Master Fu doesn't even know the basics? Yi Sihua continued, clearly not giving her a way out. Even though he hadn't interacted with this useless person, he knew a little about him. He didn't even know how to touch a piano, much less play it. How dare he be so arrogant in the game and steal his limelight? He was going to let him have a taste of the consequences in real life. Even though they had a piano at home, He Honghua had never heard her Jiu play it before. She had always assumed it was just a decoration. After all, her Jiu liked to show off. Yi Sihua was doing it on purpose to embarrass her Jiu. He Honghua clenched her fists, wanting to say something. Bo Jiu was faster than her. Should I play first or you? He Honghua paused, glancing up instinctively, her eyes filled with worry. Yi Sihua chuckled. You can go first. I'm afraid you won't have the mood to play after I start since I'm a professional. The mockery in his words was obvious, he was clearly trying to belittle her. Oh. So you're a professional. Bo Jiu walked forward casually, standing tall beside the piano. She glanced up, her gaze devilish. If an amateur like me doesn't play well, things will get awkward. Yi Sihua smirked. Let's talk about that after you finish playing. This useless person was really shameless, playing better than him. Did he know where he came from? Bo Jiu remained nonchalant in the face of his mockery. Everyone watched as the silver-haired youngster in a suit sat at the brightest spot. Chapter 931. There was a sudden gasp from the crowd. Both Bo Jiu and the mocking Yi Sihua turned towards the source of the sound. A woman walked in from the door. She seemed to be the beloved child of God. Whether it was her face or temperament, she was perfect. Few people could wear this kind of oriental red color with a noble effect, but when it was on her, it was as if nothing was a problem. That kind of fiery red color set off her snow-white skin, only making people feel that there was a kind of indescribable lazy beauty. That was not all, because there was another person standing beside her. He was dressed in a black suit, but it gave him the aura of a young master of a warlord. His arms were half bent, and his slender legs were walking forward. His tall nose bridge and thin lips were just perfect, sexy and noble at the same time. Who else could it be other than the ravishing young Master Qin of Jiang City? The woman in his arms was Movie Queenan, whom Yang Huan had been looking forward to meeting for a long time. In reality, not many people knew that Movie Queenan and Qin Mo were mother and son. Mainly because no one knew about Movie Queenan's background other than acting. Her appearance this time. Many were shocked. In terms of age, the two of them didn't seem to be a match. Besides, for young Master Qin to accompany her and intentionally lower her status, she must be a relative of the Qin family. Could Movie Queenan be one of young Master Qin's cousins? The wrong guess was because Movie Queenan didn't look like someone in her 40s. Other than Yang Huan, Bo Jiu was the only one who knew the truth. But Bo Jiu was surprised that the Almighty and Movie Queen would attend the banquet. Based on their personalities, they shouldn't have attended such events. That was indeed the case. Movie Queenan's motive for attending the banquet was to make friends with her in-laws. She hadn't expected to meet her son at the entrance. Hence, she had dragged him in. Movie Queenan had wanted to introduce her son to Madame He, but the moment she entered, she saw the silver-haired youngster smiling faintly at her from beside the piano. Jill was here too. In that moment, Movie Queenan's eyes lit up. That was the benefit of being beautiful, even her eyes were deep and seductive. Yang Huan also saw movie Queen Anne's gaze on her. But she assumed that movie Queen Anne was looking at Yi Sihua, so she walked over with a smile. Sister Anne, you came at the right time, Sihua was just about to play the piano. Guo Rong followed behind Yang Huan. Looking at the beautiful woman in front of her whose age could not be guessed, her mind raced. She didn't know how powerful this person with the surname An was. In her eyes, the other party was just a celebrity who was good at acting. Later, she heard from her son that her identity would be of great help to him. Only then did she change her opinion of this woman. It was a waste to use such an important time to trample on He Honghua and her son. In any case, a country bumpkin would only be a country bumpkin. It was not worth it for them to take it seriously. Therefore, Guo Rong quickly continued Yang Huan's words. Madam Aunt Sihua told me that you've met once. What he said the most was for me to learn from your elegance as a mother. Now that I've seen you today, I'm still far from it. Movie Queen Anne didn't say anything in response. With her self-restraint, she wouldn't expose a person. But at the same time, she smiled ambiguously and didn't reply. This was to deter those who wanted to get close to her. It was a pity that whenever Guo Rong tried to get close to someone with a motive, she would always ignore the fact that the other party didn't want to talk to her. She smiled and continued, I will get Sihua to prepare now. Madam An is here, I want to play something nice. With that, Guo Rong walked towards the piano. Unbeknownst to her. At this moment, Qin Mo was making eye contact with a certain someone. The gist of it was for her to go over to his side. This time, Bojio understood the Almighty's intentions. She supported her chin with her left hand, her fingertips tapping the piano keys. She still had to play. Qin Mo arched a brow, his gaze sweeping over Yi Sihua, who was standing beside her. His eyes dimmed as though he was asking, who is this? Don't tell me he's the person you confessed to before. Bojio understood his gaze. Almighty, don't bring up my dark history. Besides, how could I confess to someone like him? It was an insult to her taste. He Honghua noticed her Jio's gaze, but she wasn't sure if she should greet Qin Mo in such an occasion. Yes, in He Honghua's eyes, Qin Mo was just a junior who often visited her house. But from the looks of it, Qin Mo had been much easier to interact with when he was at her house. Now that they were in public, his aura changed. It was an air of nobility that kept strangers away. He Honghua wasn't the type to announce their relationship to the world. Hence, she didn't move. She was still thinking about her Jio's piano competition with someone. Bojio had the same thought. After the interruption, she tidied herself up and was about to start. But, Madam look, Madam An is here. Let's stop this meaningless piano competition for now. Your son should sit somewhere else. Guo Rong smiled politely since she had to be elegant. He Honghua frowned. What was the meaning of this? They were the ones who wanted her Jio to play the piano. Were they trying to chase her away? Bojio smiled. She didn't move, her posture relaxed and suave. Boss Guo doesn't have the final say. We still have to compete. Hee. Guo Rong chuckled lightly, like an elder guiding a junior. Young Master Fu, don't be so serious now. If you really want to compete, I'll get Sihua to teach you another day. Bojio didn't move. Instead, she glanced up, her gaze as dark as the night sky, sending chills down her spine. Guo Rong was stunned by the young man's gaze. Yang Huan hurried over. Madam it's going to be a private gathering and the piano is going to be used. I'm sorry, why don't you get your son to leave first? Yang Huan was the organizer, and since the organizer had said so, it would seem shameless if she continued to sit there. However, this group of people was too much of a bully. They were the ones who had coaxed her Joe to play the piano. Now, weren't they just playing with her? Honghua clenched her fists, her face flushing red. Sihua was already standing beside the piano. His arrogant attitude was obvious, he was asking the youngster to give way. But he hadn't expected this. The slender figure walked over and stood in front of him. He stuffed one hand into his trouser pocket, the other on the piano. He was elegant, handsome, and elegant. People like him couldn't compete. Sihua was confident in his looks, but as long as he was around, celebrities like him had to step aside. He had filmed a role in the past, a young master of the warlord era. He was from number 1 middle school after all. The forum would definitely be flooded with his photo. But very quickly, someone posted a photo of Qin Mo. What's the big deal? I'll show you the young master of the warlord in real life. When Qin Mo had first entered the school, he had been wearing a military uniform and undergoing military training. His upright posture hadn't captured his face, but the image of him holding a bottle of mineral water and wearing military boots had instantly caused the posts related to him to sink. At that time, he had been thankful that Qin Mo wasn't in the entertainment industry. Now that he was facing Qin Mo, Sihua didn't have any temper. Because he knew very well that there was too much of a gap between them. What confused Sihua the most was movie queen Anne's words. Joe, you know how to play the piano. Sihua wasn't the only one whose expression changed. Even Guo Rong turned towards movie queen Anne. Joe. Movie queen Anne actually called this country bumpkin Joe. Did they know each other? How was that possible? Honghua was the son of a country bumpkin, how could he know such a noble person? But the scene before them forced them to believe it. Movie queen Anne was behaving like a fangirl, her eyes sparkling. Hurry up and play a song, I've always wanted to see you sitting in front of the piano. It's just as I imagined, it's perfect. Yang Huan and movie queen Anne could be considered friends, but even if it was her, Ms. Anne wouldn't speak to her in such a tone. What exactly was the relationship between Honghua's son and sister Anne? No, what had he done to gain sister Anne's affection? Bo Jiu had interacted with movie queen Anne a few times and knew that the Almighty's mother had probably portrayed her character. But no matter what, he was still a son who slept with someone else. Bo Jiu was still obedient. What would Goddess Anne like to hear? Sky City. Movie queen Anne seemed to have thought of something and smiled. Mo plays well too, a duet would be perfect. Aren't you going to compete? Let him back you up. In reality, movie queen Anne wanted the two of them to be in the same frame so that Madam He would feel that they were a good match. Besides, the situation had been obvious. Someone was bullying Joe. What kind of joke was that? She couldn't even bear to make things difficult for the child, how could she allow him to be bullied? During this time, Guo Rong and Sihua's expressions had changed several times. The moment movie queen Anne finished her sentence, the mother and son froze. Yang Huan wanted to say something. Sister Anne, Huan, regardless of the situation, you have to know how to treat your guests. You did well when you were young, but now that you've grown up, you seem to have forgotten. Movie queen Anne glanced up at her. With just that one glance, Yang Huan's face burned. Everyone present knew that he was going to stop when the time was right. As the host of the banquet, her actions had been overboard. Yang Huan hadn't expected Honghua's son to know her, sister Anne, the heir of the biggest financial group. On the other side, Qin Mo was already seated beside her, playing the first sound test. Sihua's face turned pale. He knew he wasn't Qin Mo's match. But taking a step back, it wasn't a bad thing for him. Based on his understanding of the country bumpkin, he wouldn't be able to follow Qin Mo's tune. That way, the country bumpkin would be the one making a fool of himself. With that, Sihua's lips curved upwards. But in the next second, the silver-haired youngster pressed the keys, her fingers gliding over the piano like water. Her hair fell softly behind her ears, her fair neck, her distinct collarbones, every joint flawless. The youngster in the white suit seemed to have been poisoned with every glance. The youngster's tune was ethereal and pleasant, penetrating into one's heart. The scene Yi Sihua was expecting didn't happen. On the contrary, after hearing the sound of the guqin, everyone looked towards the center. The scene in front of him was indeed too beautiful. It was as though all the lights had been drawn out of the ensemble by the two men at the piano. The silver-haired youngster glanced over with a smile. Even the noble Qin Mo seemed to have a liveliness to him. The people present had also listened to all kinds of concerts. This was the first time they had heard such a concert. The coordination between the two did not have the slightest bit of interruption. Their smooth movements reverberated in everyone's ears. Everyone could not help but close their eyes to enjoy it. There was even a professional piano teacher among them. Yi Sihua's face turned paler as more and more people surrounded him. Someone pointed out, Yi Sihua's piano skills aren't as good as his. At that moment, Yi Sihua felt as though he had been slapped in front of everyone. He had mocked her at the start of the concert, but now, he had returned everything. There was a saying that had come true for him. After the youngster was done, he couldn't play anymore. Yi Sihua was aware of the situation. He didn't have the youngster's familiarity with the piano keys and wasn't confident that everyone would be engrossed when he played. The coordination between the two of them was too good. Their tacit understanding was not only flawless, but their faces also made them look like a pair of princes. In reality, this wasn't the first time Bo Jiu had played with the Almighty. But it had been a long time. The Almighty had long forgotten that she knew how to play the piano. From a certain perspective, he was the one who had taught her. Back then, he hadn't liked to play with her. In order to attract his pet's attention, she had done many things. One time, she had messed with his piano. In the end, he had grabbed her hand and pressed it against the piano keys. Which girl doesn't know how to play the piano? From today onwards, learn well and don't play with the English people next door, do you hear me? I don't know which keys are which. Stupid, yes, she had been playing the piano since she was young and the Almighty had taught her step by step. How could she be any worse than Yi Sihua? Another note fell. Qin Mo glanced over, his fingers touching someone's. It was at that moment. He found it strangely familiar. All of a sudden, something seemed to jump into his mind. Who had he ever sat with like this? Chapter 932. The blurry memory seemed to be separated by mist. He looked to be less than 5 years old. He was sitting beside the piano with a person in his arms. The person seemed to be a little younger than him. Her head was moving around and was very disobedient. He was holding the person's fingers and trying to memorize the notes on the piano. Momo, playing the piano is boring. Let's go look for William, his dog is fun to chase. We'll go after we finish. It'll be late by the time we finish, I still have to climb the wall. You'll have curry rice after you finish. You can decide if you want to play with William or stay here to eat curry rice. He heard himself asking the person to make the choice in an aloof manner. The person's head drooped for a second before she lifted it again. I want to eat curry rice, but it's not fun to play the piano all the time. Let's take a break, I'll play Super Mario with you, but tomorrow at this time, you can't go to William's house. You have to come over and learn the piano. Which girl doesn't know how to play the piano? From today onwards, learn well and don't play with the Englishman next door, do you hear me? The last part was his voice. As it was too sudden, a sharp pain shot through his head, causing him to freeze. Even though there weren't any other reactions, his pale and handsome side profile made Bo Jiu realize his discomfort. Bojo glanced over and asked in a low voice, "Brother Mo." The pain only lasted for a moment. Chi Nemo pressed his long fingers between his brows. Nothing. As soon as he finished speaking, he stood up and straightened his back. For some reason, he felt like rubbing the young man's furry head. Chi Nemo did the same. "You played well." The sudden approach made Bojo pause. The warmth on her head was obvious, just like how he had done it when they were young. His breath drifted over and she could feel the warmth. Bojo lifted her head, her eyes meeting the Almighty's deep gaze. She smiled and pressed her fist against his shoulder. "Same to you." The scene was pleasing to the eyes. The atmosphere between the two of them was also unusual. It seemed like a scene from a manga. Almost everyone on the scene was applauding for their ensemble just now. One of the Englishmen held a wine glass in his hand. When he looked at Bojo, his gaze was indescribable. He even turned to his assistant excitedly and asked, "Go and find out who this Asian boy is." It was a perfect match. Heavens! I feel like I've met the muse from the script. "Yes, sir. I'll inquire at once." In fact, they decided to attend this gathering at the last minute because of an invitation from an investor. He didn't expect to receive such an unexpected reward. The assistant knew very well that the director had visited more than a dozen acting schools in China to find a role that matched the script. But he was satisfied with none of them. However, there was a Japanese actor that the director had listed as a candidate. That actor was originally a best actor, but the assistant knew that the director was not very satisfied. Until this youngster appeared, the assistant had never seen the director so excited before. It must be because he was too much in line with the character in his mind. He saw it when it came in just now. The middle-aged Englishman wanted to wait until the banquet was over before letting and be the middleman. The two of them didn't look for anyone, especially the middle-aged Englishman. This time, they had come silently to search for a role. They didn't want anyone to recognize them. With the director's international reputation, the moment the media caught sight of him, it wouldn't matter which country it was from, it would be publicized. This wouldn't be beneficial for them to find the person they needed. The Englishman thought to himself as he glanced at the young man with the devilish smile. He was really too perfect. When the time came, he would dye his hair black and wear the robes of the Republic of China. The mysterious Asian young man sitting in front of the piano would give off a sense of the overlapping of eras. This was the person he had been looking for. He didn't just have an angelic face, he also had a devilish aura. It was a pity that such a person wasn't acting. The Englishman was still excited about his discovery. He didn't know that there were people who had seen his photo and had tried to strike up a conversation with him on several occasions, but none of them had succeeded. It wasn't anyone else, it was Yi Sihua. If he had gone up after the two of them had finished their performance, he would have been asking for humiliation. Hence, before the piano stopped playing, Yi Sihua's men had already left the area. It was because he had retreated from the crowd that he saw the director he wanted to meet. It felt as though he had gone straight from hell to heaven. So what if movie Queen Anne's path was cut off? Now that the director was there, as long as he followed him closely and recommended himself, he would definitely have a chance. Yi Sihua was a man of action. With this thought in mind, he headed in the direction the Englishman had left. On the other side, movie Queen Anne, who was close to the director, had intentionally stood beside He Honghua at the start of the performance. She took advantage of the lingering warmth and smiled. "My son used to have high standards, but ever since he met Joe, he changed. Madam, he has taught him well, raising a child like Joe who isn't afraid of my son at all. In the past, there were many people who wanted to be friends with Chin Mo, but they all had ulterior motives. Joe is different. That day, when I saw Chin Mo bring Joe home, I was shocked. After all, my son rarely gets along with anyone and Joe is an exception. But since Joe is so handsome and likable, my son must have been wondering how could there be someone better looking than him. Perhaps that was the reason why they became friends. Now that I think about it, it's amazing. Now that I think about it, it's amazing. Honghua was shocked when she heard Movie Queen Anne's first sentence. She had never expected Movie Queen Anne to be Qin Mo's mother. The more Honghua listened, the more she felt Movie Queen Anne was different from the other madams she had interacted with. After all, this person was well-mannered, elegant and magnanimous. It wasn't just an act, but every word and action was embedded in her bones, making her feel comfortable to interact with. Movie Queen Anne intentionally made her son sound more pitiful. She sighed deeply. Madam don't be fooled by how tall and strong my son is now. He was born prematurely in the past and I didn't take good care of him. With that, the two mothers found a common point of communication. Honghua immediately said, my Jiu was born prematurely too, he was so wrinkled that I was worried I wouldn't be able to take care of him. I guess so. Movie Queen Anne reached out and held Honghua's hand. We have to interact more in the future, both of them are troublesome. Honghua was delighted. That's right. Oh right, Sister I've heard about what happened to you. If you need any help, feel free to let me know. Movie Queen Anne was a capable person. She raised Madam to Sister without changing her expression. If it had been someone else, Honghua would definitely be on her guard. Not only did this person look at her with sincerity, she was also beautiful. Most importantly, she didn't have anything on her that she was concerned about. Her warmth made Honghua feel as though they were old friends at first sight. There wasn't the slightest bit of pretense. In reality, Movie Queen Anne was indeed such a person. I have long wanted to speak to Sister and have thought of paying you a visit, but I was afraid it would be too abrupt. Today, I heard that Sister would be attending the banquet, so I specially came over to befriend Sister Movie Queen Anne wasn't just expressing her sincerity to Honghua, she was also saying it for Guorong, who was standing beside them. The way she had asked Joe to move away from the piano was clearly an act of contempt. Movie Queen Anne didn't feel the need to give her any face. At that moment, it wasn't just Guorong, even Yang Huan's face turned pale after hearing the entire story. It had to be said that Movie Queen Anne's words were a slap to the face, leaving no room for negotiation. On the other hand, Honghua was the most generous and straightforward. You should have said so earlier. If you had said so earlier, we would have met at home. I don't know anything else, but I know how to cook. When you come to my house, Sister will cook for you. That would be great. I love to eat, but that's the disadvantage of being an actress. There are so many things I want to eat, but I can't eat them immediately. Movie Queen Anne's tone was coquettish. Take today for example, I just want to eat scrambled eggs with tomatoes. I can't even find that kind of home-cooked taste outside. Honghua was honest, she immediately replied, that's easy, if you want to eat, come over tomorrow. Can we eat tonight? After Movie Queen Anne asked, she felt that it wasn't polite. I'm disturbing Sister I'll eat tomorrow. Honghua couldn't bear to see the beauty in such a state. It's not disturbing, I just need time to prepare the ingredients. It isn't too late, if you really want to eat, let's go home. I'll have to trouble Sister then. Movie Queen Anne held Honghua's hand and smiled. She looked like a helpless little bird. Bo Jiu raised a brow as she walked over. Go home for dinner. What was going on? What was going on? When did her mother and the Almighty's mother become so close? In the time she had been playing the piano, the two of them were already calling each other sisters, completely disregarding her and the Almighty. That was indeed the case. The two of them chatted for a while before deciding on the itinerary. Even though Bo Jiu didn't think it was a good idea to attend such a banquet. She was still a little confused when her mother shoved her into the car so quickly. She glanced sideways at the Almighty, who was sitting beside her. His face was expressionless, handsome and elegant as usual. Was she making a fuss out of nothing? Bojo arched a brow. The four of them sat in movie Queen Anne's car, a Bentley. Even the chauffeur was an old subordinate of the Qin family. His aura was undoubtedly the most graceful among all the guests. Yang Huan came personally to send them off. In reality, she didn't want movie Queen Anne to leave, but there was something she had to mention. "Mrs. He, I'm sorry for my negligence, I hope you won't take it to heart." He Honghua knew very well why Yang Huan said that. It was all for the sake of her younger sister Anne. Hence, He Honghua didn't reply, merely smiling. People with different principles couldn't make plans together. In the future, she wouldn't attend such banquets and she wouldn't befriend Yang Huan. That was all. It was understandable for Yang Huan to come out since she was acquainted with movie Queen Anne. But Guo Rong followed, afraid that her son wouldn't have a chance once movie Queen Anne left. Without a second thought, she pressed the car window. "Madam Anne, I have a private matter to discuss with you, may I know when you are free?" Guo Rong's actions weren't polite at all. However, she didn't realize it herself. She emphasized in a self-centered manner, "It's about my son." "Please make time, Madam," and movie Queen Anne was perplexed by his words. She smiled. "We aren't close and I don't have the obligation to talk to you about your son. Let's go." Guo Rong watched as the Bentley was about to leave, fuming. How can she be like that? Her voice drifted into the car. Even movie Queen Anne wasn't fond of such people. She always believed that everyone in the world should help her and that it wasn't good if they didn't. As compared to such a two-faced person, her in-law was much better. He spoke his mind and was magnanimous. Even though he was careless, he understood the bigger picture. Movie Queen Anne felt that there was nothing wrong with her son and Jiu being together. Even if the gender wasn't ideal. But there wasn't anything else to pick on. Her in-law was easy to get along with. Movie Queen Anne's next step was to think of a way to win her over, to ask her about her thoughts and try to get her to accept as soon as possible. Bojo didn't know what movie Queen Anne was thinking, but from the looks of it, movie Queen Anne was indeed too passionate towards her mother. She had called her sister he so intimately. Was scrambled eggs with tomatoes that attractive? Bojo didn't understand movie Queen Anne's actions. It didn't mean Qin Mo didn't understand, but it wasn't the time to point it out since there were still people around. Especially the person beside him, who was still thinking of escaping. It wasn't suitable for her to know his intentions. If he forced her even more, it would be troublesome if he allowed her to leave. Qin Mo's method was straightforward. He would settle her down and not allow her to go anywhere. Once she was completely his, he would talk about other things. With that in mind, Qin Mo reached his hand out, grabbing onto her hand without a change in expression. There wasn't any emotion on his face. There wasn't much emotion on his face, but when his long and narrow eyes looked towards Bojo, it was obvious that he was telling her to be quiet. Bojo didn't retract her hand because that would attract the attention of the two parents in front. Chapter 933. He Honghua's attention was completely captured by movie Queen Anne's words. Indeed, she hadn't noticed the commotion in the back seat. Bojo had assumed that the Almighty would let go after holding her hand. She hadn't expected him to hold her hand for the entire journey. Bojo noticed a white cloth wrapped around his slightly cold fingertip. She remembered how the Almighty had helped her even though he was injured. Her fingers touched his. Qin Mo was aware of his mother's capabilities and knew that the two in front wouldn't have the time to deal with them. He tilted his handsome face, his voice low. "Don't forget what you promised me." Bojo arched a brow. What did she promise? My hand can't touch water. Chi Nemo raised his left hand casually, clearly reminding her. Bojo wanted to say something. He Honghua turned. What do you want to eat? I'll get Xiaodong to prepare the dishes. As long as it's Auntie's cooking, I'm fine with anything. Chi Nemo smiled, looking like a noble. Bojo couldn't help grumbling internally. She had never seen anyone as picky as the Almighty. He actually said anything was fine. I'll get someone to prepare it. He Honghua had been amazed by the perfect youngster in this world. He was so polite, it wasn't surprising that he was good friends with her Joe. Bojo glanced over, lowering her voice. Bojo glanced over, lowering her voice. Brother Mo, be careful, there are carrots in my mom's soup. Chi Nemo glanced at the mischievous youngster, replying slowly, indeed, you should be careful. Bojo laughed. Was the Almighty going to admit he was picky? Auntie. Chi Nemo glanced up, smiling lightly. Joe said he doesn't like carrots. Let's not put carrots in the dishes for dinner. Bojo, he Honghua stilled, turning towards her Joe. Why didn't he tell me he doesn't like carrots? I won't put them in the soup this time. No matter what she said, it would only make her seem humble since the Almighty's move was too shameless. Movie Queen and understood her son better. When she heard his words, she glanced at Chi Nemo, smiling ambiguously. She was a beauty. She knew better than anyone who didn't eat carrots. Movie Queen and hadn't expected her son to pull such a stunt. If it was in the past, he would definitely not say what he liked or didn't like. In fact, he rarely visited anyone's house. Also, did these two people really think that she could not see their little tricks? He had underestimated her too much, humph. The more Movie Queen and looked at them, the more she liked them. Especially when Joe was depressed, his silver hair would curl up, and the resentment of the beautiful youth. Chi Nemo naturally noticed the way the youngster was looking at him. His thin eyelids lifted slightly, his eyes overflowing with a smile. Movie Queen and took in his smile. The last bit of unwillingness in her heart disappeared without a trace. She hadn't seen her son smile in such a long time. Probably only Joe could make him like this. He was no longer as rational, and even a little unreasonable. But this was him with flesh and blood. He hoped that the influence of that incident would disappear like smoke in thin air. With that thought, Movie Queen and pulled He Honghua over to talk about shopping. Regardless of the age or status of a woman, when they talked about clothes, they were always the same. It was as though they would never be tired. Bojo waited for the two parents to resume their conversation before glancing in Chi Mo's direction. It was a little resentful. In that instant, Chi Nemo was in a daze again. It was as though the youngster in front of him had become very, very small. Then, she sat on his bed, her pair of lotus root-like short legs swinging back and forth. She was not at ease at all. She also looked at him with the same gloomy gaze. She was so noisy that he could not even write a word. Right? Chi Nemo frowned at his own imagination. Had he been sleeping too little recently? Even images that didn't exist had appeared. But Chi Nemo was curious about how she had looked like when she was young. On the other side, Guorong was upset that she hadn't managed to stop Movie Queenin. She called her son and complained that it isn't nice at all. If she hadn't helped you, I wouldn't have ended up like this. Who knew that she wouldn't even bother to look at me when I was already at the car door? What kind of person is she? Yi Sihua held onto his phone, pushing the crowd aside. Mom, there's no need to look for her. Guess who I saw just now? It's Director William from The Matrix. With him around, there's no need for me to look for her. Guorong was elated. That explains why I didn't see you. I've been looking for a chance to talk to Director William and chased after him. That's all for now, Mom, I'm hanging up. Wait for my good news. Lee Si-hwa was confident that he would catch Director William's eye. After all, he had an Asian feel to him. Moreover, Director William must be here for the casting. If not, an international director wouldn't be so low profile. He was definitely here to recruit newcomers. With that thought, Lee Si-hwa's eyes lit up. He pushed the receptionist aside and rushed towards the British man. Director William obviously did not expect someone to suddenly appear in front of him. His blue eyes were filled with astonishment. To show his respect, Lee Si-hwa bowed before exclaiming in English, "Director William, I didn't expect it to be you. I thought I was seeing things. Could you please sign your name for me? I like your movies a lot. The last time I met you was at the film festival, but I don't think you remember me. I seem to be rambling, but you should be able to understand how I feel when I meet my idol. I'm Lee Si-hwa, an actor." William smiled. "Oh, of course, I understand." Lee Si-hwa's confidence was boosted by his response. Having been educated overseas for so many years, he knew that Europeans loved to recommend themselves. This was a common flaw of the Chinese. As early as last year, he had transferred his nationality overseas and understood their way of thinking. Hence, after Lee Si-hwa expressed his admiration, he didn't hesitate to state his motive. "I heard that you are looking for a mysterious male actor from the East. I would like to recommend myself to you." William came to a sudden realization. He rubbed his chin and looked Lee Si-hwa up and down before shaking his head. "You're not bad looking. If it was in the past, I might have considered it. But now, I'm really sorry, I've already found the actor in my heart. If you were at the banquet, you would have seen the silver-haired youngster playing the piano. Be it in terms of looks or aura, he exudes a mysterious aura unique to the East. The smile on his face is devilish but not arrogant. He gives off a humble yet not to be trifled with. He's just like what you Chinese call a noble, like a jade." William said the last 4 words in Chinese and his pronunciation was a little strange. But that didn't affect the meaning he was trying to convey. The more Lee Si-hwa listened, the tighter his fists clenched. It was that disgusting nouveau riche. What mysterious aura unique to the East? That was just an act. Lee Si-hwa never expected that the role he had fought so hard for would be snatched away by that country bumpkin. No way. He wouldn't allow that to happen. Lee Si-hwa's lips froze. Director William's words were like a slap to his face. He tried his best to force a smile. "Director, you might not know this, but this person isn't an actor and doesn't have any experience in this field. Furthermore, his character," Lee Si-hwa paused to give Director William some room to imagine. From what he knew, when filming overseas, no matter how good an actor's appearance was, as long as they weren't professional or had poor acting skills, they would be rejected. As expected, when William heard this, he paused. Lee Si-hwa laughed in his heart and wanted to add more vinegar. Unexpectedly, when William spoke again, he switched to Chinese. Even though he stuttered a little, his meaning was clear. "Mr. E, are you trying to defame that Asian youngster because you feel indignant about losing to him?" Lee Si-hwa froze and immediately denied it. Of course not. He couldn't let Director William think that way. This was an issue of image. Moreover, Director William was an internationally renowned figure and he had to be magnanimous in front of him. "I'm just stating the facts. I'm afraid that Director William doesn't understand the situation and might use the wrong person. After all, this person doesn't have a good reputation. He was originally an esports player, but in order to become famous, he kept provoking his fans. Not only did he create a topic for himself, he even forcefully dragged another almighty to be his CP. If such a person were to join the production team, he would do anything to become famous. From what Mr. E said, you seem to know a lot about this youngster." William's English was much smoother. Since that's the case, why don't you give me all his information? I'll take a closer look. If it's really as Mr. E said, he isn't suitable to act in our movie. Yi Sihua was stunned again. He really didn't want to tell Director William about the nouveau riche. He hoped that Director William would never be able to find him. William glanced at the person in front of him, arching a brow. Mr. E, are you not willing to let me verify it? Yi Sihua had been in the industry for a long time and wasn't stupid. If he were to reject now, not only would his image be ruined in front of Director William, his words wouldn't be credible at all. He might as well be more generous since there was a lot of negative news about Spade Z online. I do know a little about him, Yi Sihua replied. Yi Sihua replied, but I'm not too sure about the details, he is rather famous online. Director Willem, if you are looking for him, you can do a search online. Spade Z is his in-game name and his mother is from the countryside. It's probably because of this that he does things differently and wants to be famous. William's gaze deepened. Thank you, I'll do some research first before making a decision. Director William, you don't have to be so polite, Yi Sihua replied sincerely. Even if the role doesn't belong to me, I don't wish for it to be played by any random person. This time, William didn't reply. At this moment, his assistant returned. Yi Sihua knew he had achieved his goal. It was simple, if he couldn't get the role, that country bumpkin wouldn't be able to either. He was just a country bumpkin, what right did he have to steal his limelight time and time again? Yi Sihua sent Director William to the car personally. I'll think about it. This was what Director William said before he left. Yi Sihua waited for the car to drive off before smiling. However, there was still a gush of anger in his chest that could not be released. Who was he to snatch the role from him? Yi Sihua kicked the rubbish bin beside him, his eyes dimming. But it was a blessing in disguise, he had cleverly left Director Williams' contact details. Perhaps after Director Williams saw the comments online, he might change his mind and let him take the role. It wasn't impossible. Yi Sihua smiled once more, picking up his phone to make a call. Help me prepare some dirt. No, this time it isn't someone from the industry, nor that web novel author. I don't think they need it anymore. I managed to win over his fans, that web novel author should be in a bad mood. Don't bother with such a small character, it's an esports player, ID Spade Z. Once it's done, we'll go according to the previous arrangement. Alright. The person on the other end of the line had a sharp mouth and monkey cheeks, who else could it be other than the tall and slender criminal gang? He hung up, lifting his head to smile at the girl operating the computer. One of our chess pieces has his eyes on Spade Z, that's right. The girl smiled. Help him out. The tall and slender man seemed to have other matters to attend to. The crime squad, don't worry, they won't be able to find anything. The girl tapped her fingers on the keyboard. The new psychologist has already taken over the investigation with the help of the higher-ups, no one will be able to stop us. How's your discussion with Rao Ro? The tall and slender man laughed sarcastically. He seems a little conflicted, he's still so naive. That's all, he wants to walk his own path. Even if he can't play in the professional league anymore, the mention of his father will calm him down. Chapter 934. He Honghua's bright voice came from outside the door. Joe, hurry down, dinner is ready. Bo Jiu adjusted her breathing and smiled. Alright, let's go down. He Honghua was still boiling the soup. She went downstairs after receiving a reply. Bo Jiu had always been agile. Even after that, her legs weren't as strong as before, but it didn't affect her standing up. But the moment she stood up, the thing that belonged to someone else spread down her fair legs. She couldn't help but pause. Chin Mo saw it as well. The slender figure that had been wearing a shirt bent over, pulling out 2 pieces of tissue from the side and pinching them. After wiping twice, he carried Bojo horizontally. "Shower before you go down." This time, Bojo didn't reject him. The shower wouldn't take long. Chinamo rolled up his sleeves and washed her thoroughly before grabbing a towel to wrap her up. His breath drifted over. "Are you cold?" Bojo shook her head. Water was still dripping from her silver hair. The Almighty's actions weren't gentle at all. He had probably thrown her under the shower and carried her back. In that instant, she was reminded of the scene where the Almighty had thrown Princess into the bathtub. It was basically the same. She still had to apply the medicine. Bojo took the opportunity while the Almighty was buttoning her shirt with one hand to apply the medicine and wrap the bandage. But this indeed proved that the Almighty's hand couldn't touch water. Just now, the Almighty had only had one hand in the water. The shirt and pants from before couldn't be worn anymore. Bojo changed into her home clothes. Her hair was half-dried, the fluffy hair making her look younger. Chinamo glanced at her and had another hallucination. He had seen her in this state often in the past, sitting on the bed fluffy and misbehaving after being scooped out of the water. It was a miniature version of her. Chinamo reminded himself once more that a certain someone wasn't a princess and he couldn't raise her like a pet. Even though he wanted to shrink a certain someone and stuff her into his pocket so that he could bring her wherever he went. But that wasn't realistic. They walked down the stairs one after another. In the end, it was still speed. It took less than half an hour. The dishes were already on the table. 8 home-cooked dishes and a soup looked very delicious. Probably every parent would take out their child's childhood photo album when they were a guest. He Honghua was no exception. Before the age of 2, Ju needed to hide her gender, so she didn't have many photos. Ever since he was 2 years old, he had been getting more and more. He Honghua pointed to one of the photos and said, "This is the photo before she was sent to kindergarten." She was crying miserably. Cute. Movie queen and was undoubtedly fond of children, especially since they were so adorable. She couldn't bear to part with them, forgetting about the dishes on the table. It was He Honghua who noticed the 2 people coming down. She smiled and said, "Sit down and eat." "Why is your hair still wet?" The question was directed at Bojo and she replied naturally, "I took a shower." He Honghua did not suspect anything. Movie queen and lifted her lids and glanced in their direction. Her focus was on her son. How reckless. Chinamo was very calm, and it was hard to tell anything from his side profile. Bojo had a devilish smile on her face. From this, it was hard to tell who was taking advantage of who. Was her son the one at the bottom? Movie queen and felt that it was more likely. She shook her head and passed the photo album over. "Look at Joe when he was young. Isn't he cute?" She was reminding her son that he needed to take the initiative. Chinamo really wanted to see what he looked like when he was young. His fingers swept across the photo, looking at the child in the photo album. Strangely, even though he had thought so much about a certain someone when he was young, he didn't feel much when he saw these photos. Chinamo frowned slightly, his face as elegant as ever. Naturally, the 2 parents began to talk about their childhood stories at the dinner table. Bojo listened as she ate. She wasn't surprised since she knew better than anyone what her puppy had been like when he was young. Basically, he had been a spotless doll, ignoring everyone. People of the same age would often wonder why the child was so much cleaner than them. "It's my fault, I always made him wear brightly colored clothes. When he was young, people often treated him like a little girl," Movie Queenan said. Bojo could empathize with him. When she had first met the Almighty, she had thought he was a doll. She had never considered him as a girl. Movie Queenan smiled at the youngster. "Did Joe encounter anything interesting when he was young?" Bojo glanced at the Almighty, who was frowning as he ate. She couldn't help laughing. I'm different from the Almighty, no one thought I was a girl when I was young. Hearing this, Chi Nemo put down his chopsticks and glanced at her casually, as though he was asking her to be taught a lesson. Bojo's smile deepened. When she caught his gaze, she changed the topic. But when I was young, my best friend looked like a girl. When I first saw him, I thought he was a doll. At that time, I didn't have any concept of suits. I only knew that his hair was tied up in a bun, so he should be a girl. He was fair and pretty, but cold. I couldn't help but want to play with him and bathe with him, but he always despised me. There was once when I climbed over the wall and entered his bathroom. That was when I realized he was a boy. That explains why he would always frown whenever I pounced on him. A small ponytail. Movie Queen Anne's eyes lit up. I used to love to tie Mo's hair, but he decided to cut it short on his own, so I couldn't do it. With that, Movie Queen Anne paused. Joe, don't be fooled by Mo's looks now, he was adorable when he was young. I believe you. Bojo felt that her puppy was adorable, cold and aloof. Movie Queen Anne chatted happily. It sounds like you have a good relationship with your friend. Are you still in contact? I guess so. Bojo took a bite of the food. Movie Queen Anne glanced at her son. That means they are childhood sweethearts. MMH, the youngster didn't deny it, even agreeing readily. When Chi Nemo heard the word MMH, he lowered his raised hand. He didn't like the term childhood sweethearts because it implied a part of someone's life that he had never been a part of. Besides, they were still in contact. With that in mind, Chi Nemo clenched his fists, his chest tightening. They were still in contact. Who could it be? There were only a few people around her. Unknowingly, the first name that popped into Chi Mo's mind was Hoshino. He didn't like such speculation. But everything that had happened in the past was right in front of him. Including her reaction when she saw Hoshino. He had never seen her look at anyone with such a gaze. There was an undetectable reluctance. What was so good about a person, and how important was he to the other party for her to be reluctant to part with him? Chi Mo's gaze dimmed. When he raised his hand again, his aura was much colder. It was as though a bucket of water had been poured over him. Even his breathing was chilly. Was that why she always wanted to escape? Chi Mo's chest tightened, and even the line of his jaw stiffened. Bojo sat beside Chi Mo. When she glanced over, she saw Chi Mo's expression. Was the Almighty in a bad mood again? Why? Was it because of what they had said in the room? That wasn't a suitable time to reply. But even if she could reply, how could she? Once the Almighty found out that she was Z, he would definitely feel that she had lied to him. But she was the one who had been hiding this matter. Even if the day came when everything was revealed, she would still be prepared. What she got in return was his resistance. She was also prepared. She didn't want to see his deep eyes filled with disgust. She would rather reduce the source of his disgust. Bojo paused. She picked up a piece of beef and placed it on the Almighty's plate. She remembered that beef was one of the few foods the Almighty liked. When he saw the piece of meat on the plate, the coldness in Chi Mo's eyes dissipated. He Honghua broke into a smile. Chi Mo likes beef. Eat more. With that, she picked up a piece of meat and placed it over. Bojo watched as the Almighty stilled. His etiquette wasn't bad, it didn't make He Honghua unhappy. But when he lowered his head, he used his chopsticks to push the rest of the beef forward. Then he picked up the piece she had picked up and placed it in his mouth. It was probably because of the slight frown on his face, which made him look extremely serious. His seriousness reminded her of the times when they were young. He would sit on the bed and wipe her hair with a towel. He would even warn her not to barge into his room. Ever since then, she hadn't entered his room. She had stayed on the balcony to watch him write. In the end, she didn't know why, but he was probably afraid that she would destroy all the plants he had been growing. He had opened the window to let her in, saying that he would only keep her for one night. That day, Bojio had washed herself especially clean, afraid that her puppy would dislike her again. Fortunately, her puppy had lifted the blanket coldly and told her to lie still. It was difficult for her to stay still. But her puppy's voice had been pleasant. He had opened his fairy tale book and read her a bedtime story. Sometimes, he would reach out and stroke her hair. He had told her seriously that as long as she didn't play with William, he would read her stories every day and let her sleep on his bed. Between William and her pet, she would definitely choose her pet. Back then, he hadn't allowed her to do many things. That included eating potato chips on his bed. But after listening to his stories, she would feel hungry. He would sweep her a cold glance before heading downstairs to bring food up, just like a little prince. At that time, he had already cut his hair short and was wearing cotton pajamas. His features were still prettier than hers and his body was soft. Indeed, she couldn't judge a person based on their childhood. Bojio would never have expected that her puppy, who had always been softer than her, would have such sharp edges. Which part hadn't changed? It was those eyes. Beneath his thin eyelids was a pair of deep and narrow phoenix eyes. Ever since he was young, he had been different from others. Nice to look at? A familiar voice asked. Bojio arched a brow. "MH? You've been looking at me since a while ago." Chi Nemo took the chance when he Honghua went to scoop the soup, turning to press a cold breath into her ear. "What are you thinking about? Haven't you slept enough?" Bojio was thick-skinned. The best way to deal with someone as scheming as the Almighty was to remain silent. But the next question made her pause. The Almighty asked, "Is this childhood sweetheart the scheming boy you told me about?" Scheming boy. Bojio couldn't help wanting to laugh. But in order not to let the Almighty know, she nodded seriously. Chi Nemo watched her, his gaze deep. "Stay away from him in the future." Bojio laughed so hard her shoulders were shaking. So the grown Almighty was so hostile towards her when she was young. Chi Nemo couldn't understand why she was laughing. In the end, the dinner ended. He didn't get a clear answer. Chi Mo's aura was much colder than before. But no matter how bad his mood was, Chi Nemo wouldn't show it in front of Yi Honghua. Movie Queenan was the best. Even Qin Xiaodong was impressed. After all, he had never seen Madame become friends with anyone in such a short period of time. Movie Queenan was the first. Moreover, they seemed to be getting along well with each other. They didn't even notice the change in time. This time, Movie Queenan came back not only for her son but also because there was a role that suited Joe. She wanted to try persuading him to see if he would agree. But it was obvious that today wasn't a good time. With her son around, she wouldn't be able to get the role. After dinner, Movie Queenan stood up with a bright smile. "It's late, Mo and I will be heading back first. Sister He, let's meet another day. We can watch their competition together." "No problem," He Honghua agreed readily. When they left, everyone was sending Movie Queenan off. "I have something to discuss with Joe in private. You can head back first." He led Bojio to a fork in the road. There would always be a fork in the villa district. For places with good greenery like this, there would be a street lamp installed in the area with lush leaves. The afterglow of the lamp shone on Qin Mo's face, a mesmerizing handsomeness. Bojio couldn't help calling him a demon. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.